OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
7:30 Friday morning. Very good morning to you. Welcome along to OTB AM. Adrian and Owen with you all the way until 10 this morning. Morning to you, Owen.
Morning, Adrian. Welcome back.
And welcome back to yourself.
Thanks very much.
How are you keeping?
Yeah, good. Good to be here.
Get out of the valleys all right?
Yeah, I did indeed. Found my way to freedom once again.
Yeah.
The very tough 40-minute train journey on a beautiful, luxurious train. And a system that is the envy of everybody in Ireland. It was very tough to get out of there.
Fair play. Great stuff. Lots of good reaction from your chats over there. And plenty more to come, I'm sure, over the next few weeks as well. You were watching Arsenal last night. They're suddenly top four is back on.
Oh, I'm telling you, the ability that these guys have to, voluntarily get a man sent off in increasingly ridiculous circumstances and still get the job done. There hasn't been too many instances where they got the job done before last night, is incredible. And last night's red card was one of the more obscene of the season, which is saying something. I'd still have Thomas Partey flying all the way home from AFCON for the sole purpose of getting sent off as number one. But at number two was Gabriel Martinelli last night getting double yellow carded in the exact same play, pushing a player and then tackling a player at the end of the play in both yellow card offences, and the correct call from the referee. I just hadn't seen it too often in the past, and it was a very typical Arsenal moment. The issue was that Arsenal were 1-0 up, so what they had to do was do a Liverpool in the first leg situation, which was put their backs to the wall and hope that they could grind their way out of that situation, and that's exactly what they did. Big 6 pointers coming up over the next little while. Brentford, Watford, and Wolves again, which actually is not even being sarcastic, another 6 pointer. So Arsenal may actually finish in the top four without being very good, and that's not a bad situation for them to be in.
The red cards on the face of you think that's great, a bit of fighting spirit. This is brilliant. It's exactly what's required. And Arteta can't be behind the scenes going, lads, stop getting red cards. He has to be saying, listen, fire in the belly. But then you kind of get the detail of what's going on, and it's not exactly like flying into challenges and stuff.
That's actually a good point, especially the first of the two Martinelli yellow cards. It was a little push, at least do a bit of damage, or at least be cynical. Or like the second part of it, I can see if he thinks that there's an opportunity going to arise for Wolves, take the yellow card. There was no need for the first one, so yeah, I'd agree with that. The problem with Arsenal now is that if they keep getting red cards, they just won't have any good players left to play on the pitch. They're really at the end of the thread here. So they were due to be playing Chelsea this weekend. Obviously that's not on at the moment, and then it's Brentford on Saturday week for them. So a little bit of a pause before that happens. I'm in agony this morning, I'm not going to lie to you. I've started back playing a little bit of sport over the last few weeks. I'm involved, one of my kids is involved in the local GAA club, so it's a super club as it's nationally described. But I have to say, the longer you're there, the more you pick away at that and actually discover the amazing community that's involved. But the latest iteration is that they brought us down for sort of an introductory to hurling course. It was run on a Tuesday night over I think about 4 weeks, and yeah, it was great. It was like I kind of went down expecting it to be a little bit of a sort of a coaching clinic and kind of a walk around to see what was going on, but it was like full on. They were kind of running you through all the drills that the kids would do, and it was brilliant. But anyway, it led from that into here on a Tuesday night there's going to be a bit of a puck around. We're going half-paced hurling, it's called, and we're going to see if there's any interest and see if we can get a few games going. 60 lads signed up for it. Wow.
Sorry, more than 60, but 60 lads are turning up for it on a pretty much a weekly basis every Tuesday.
We're talking about old lads here, really, aren't we?
It's for lads in their 40s and 50s, so for you, Owen, absolutely that constitutes old. I accept that entirely. There's nothing half-paced about it, as it turns out. Like, I played hurling for about 2 weeks when I was about 12, and I'd be well able to go out and, like anybody else, get a ball and sliotar and poke around the local park and think, geez, I'd be alright at this.
Yeah.
But it's a different thing when there's like fellas bearing down you and you're trying to get a crack away. There's hook and schelp and everything going on down there. It's but it's brilliant. There's a real community men's shed feel almost about it, in that when I look at my own situation, right, in terms of everything else going on in my life. So we had a third child a few weeks back, and about a month into it, it and of itself reminds me of Ireland, New Zealand in Hamilton about 10 years ago, and myself and my wife are like Mike Ross and Paddy Wallace flailing at challenges coming left, right and centre from Israel Dag and Sonny. Every time we get up off the floor on Sonny Boy Williams is running another try, and all you can do is sit there and go like, I mean, these people are unbelievable, and we're just here as prep for them.
You're 62-0 down.
To be the best version of themselves, to, you know, go on and beat Australia in a World Cup final, or like master Irish at junior infants, or whatever the case might be. But it does feel as if we're getting pulled asunder left, right and centre at home. So that's the context of that. And then me talking to my wife about about how hard that is, she's the last person in the world I can speak to about that. Having had like a child 4 weeks ago, listening to me, she's literally the last person that I can speak to about any of that. So it does feel like as if we got on to the hurling and it's like, how are you getting on? There's a real sort of deep connection there, and it feels like, you know, we're kindred spirits.
You coming home with your aches and pains, trying to garner sympathy, probably doesn't go down.
She listens to me, to be fair to her, she does listen to me. I'm not sure any of it goes in, but I'm still, so it's like, that was Tuesday night. Today's Friday morning. I'm in agony. I'm in absolute agony. Like, I have bruises up and down my legs. I cracked a hurl. We were out on, I said on Tuesday night, I cracked. You can see a picture of it there on the screen, and it doesn't it look like, he was scalping? There was a bit of skin and hair flying there. I'd say the clash of the ash.
That's a good tribute to Pádraig Maher right there.
What actually happened was that there was a right coming together at one point between two lads, and one Tipperary fella did say, well done lads, a great old tribute there, but that was me trying to bat down a ball and the hurl came apart. But anyway, we're getting sorted for another one. But so that's it, and it's just it's a brilliant connection in a way that I do feel that the GAA does so many things right in terms of harnessing the community, and like the biggest volunteer movement in the country, and like you look at the numbers that are involved, but it doesn't really tend to engage people in an organised way beyond, if you're not interested in being involved in the junior season, that competitive level of having training and games, if it's just that five-a-side nature to it, hasn't, I should say, typically historically done that well with engaging people. But this type of thing is absolutely brilliant. It's just that it is against all marketing regulations in the sense of half-paced hurling. It really isn't. Like, it's full bore. Once the whistle goes, our lads are rolling back the years, and you can see the fellas who've played a bit of senior. There's plenty of them down there who've played a bit of senior hurling. Yeah, and no, they really stand out from the crowd.
And when you say you played for 2 weeks in your teens, do you mean that literally?
Yeah.
Right, that's pretty impressive. I mean, like, hurling is not necessarily a game that you can bluff. In much the same way that I would say football is the same, not Gaelic, soccer is the same. Like, I think that with Gaelic football, at least you can, if you're playing at that level, you can grab the ball, hand pass it to somebody, and hide. With hurling, like, there is a touch involved. There is an actual ability to make contact with the ball that only comes with practice. If you haven't played hurling until your 40s, you're a bit screwed. So I'm a little bit suspicious of your 2 weeks thing. So fair play.
I don't know what you're a bit suspicious about. If you were to see any video of me in action, on, you'd be like, this guy, he is brutal. I'm absolutely not sitting here saying that I'm offering anything. I did score a goal on Tuesday night though, so I mean, there was you started.
Describe the goal to us.
Well, so the ball comes across. I've leapt in the air, AFL style almost, to reach into the night sky and, you know, pluck this ball from the air. It wasn't exactly in my mind's eye. That's what happened. I mean, in reality, I'd say the video might look slightly differently. But I got a short grip in the hurl, which I hadn't thought about in week one. Only when I heard somebody who actually knew what they were doing tell one of our opponents, take a short grip, have a lash. I thought, how short grip that work? Because before that, I was having a shot on goal, and every time I got near it, I'd fling it out here and I'd have a go at it. And like anybody within an arse's roar me was knocking it out of my hand. So the short grip worked, sort of sideways on goal, in it went. And I'm not going to lie, after that I kind of thought, that's grand. That's me done. I can go home now and tell everybody I just scored a goal, and that'll be, I don't need to do much more.
Was there a little fist bump? Was there a little celebration?
Internally, I know you wouldn't be, Jesus, the hurling snobs wouldn't be having that. Like, you couldn't go out sort of high-fiving anybody or...
Fist bumping is second nature to... I suppose you didn't win a free out. That is...
a free out, or having a shoulder off someone or whatever, like Dermot O'Connor style shoulder off somebody, that would definitely be appropriate. But anyway, I'm feeling the aches and pains of it. It's brilliant, and I love it, and the collegiality of it, the community of it, it's fantastic. I encourage people. I've sat around, I'm 44, I've sat around for pretty much the last 15 years saying, I'm going to do something. Will you wait and see, I'm going to do something. And it wasn't until I basically had my arm sort of twisted to go and do it that I absolutely went for it. But I do recommend people that are sort of on the fence about it, go for it. Like, if it's five-side, if it's badminton, squash, tag rugby, whatever you're thinking about, go for it. Like it's brilliant. It's great for the mind and it's great for the body.
Like I dare say as well that people in your position would be most vulnerable to getting coaxed into the GAA to play a Gaelic sport, because you're naturally going to be down there with your kids or whatever.
It was that treadmill of, that was exactly how it kicked off. The club is Kilmacud Crokes. They are unbelievable. Honestly, from day one when you go in, they harness that volunteer movement, and they had the structures that are in place are so slick of making sure that whatever opportunities are there for you to be involved and to contribute are opened up, and it's brilliant. So I love it, and I mean, I think my plan is to go every second week. To be honest, Dawn, every second week is about right. I'm feeling, having crawled out of the bed this morning, literally to you know, the next morning you're barely able to put your socks on. I'm thinking every week might be a bit too much, but every second week I'll be very happy with.
Yeah, it's you can. I mean, it's the Astro really as much as anything else, I think.
That is a great shout. That is a great shout. Whenever the main pitch is fixed up there, I'm sure they'll absolutely let us credit hackers over to have a lash off it. Obviously, in terms of real sport this weekend, the Joey Carbery game, can we officially just call it the Joey Carbery game? Because, like, you know, I think these games can take on a life of their own, and the narratives around them can become very clear. But Joey Carbery, I was just looking at some of the stats around their own, and I haven't read a huge amount of the previews about the game yet, and was surprised to see that it's his first ever Six Nations start. This is Andy Farrell is obviously all in this, guys, as backup to Johnny Sexton. I think it's, my initial reaction when I saw the team names was, oh crap, and then I thought, oh, actually, well, in terms of the World Cup, it's probably ideal preparation in a lot of ways, because this is the sort of thing, exact sort of thing that can happen within a few days of a crucial World Cup game. And
I think that this is a really important game in the context of the World Cup as well, because there won't be another opportunity to play France in France until the probability / possibility, whatever way you want to look at it, of them facing one another in France in next year's World Cup. So this is a massive game in that context. And what Ireland would have got out of it, obviously, with a full team with Johnny Sexton there, is the ability to lay down a marker. But what may stand Ireland in better stead is an answer to the most important question that we've had over the last couple of years, which is who is going to step in when Johnny Sexton does eventually fade into the background. Now, there are two factors to this. The first factor why this question has been kind of put on the long finger is that Sexton has been outstanding when it's been needed the most, and he was brilliant last week. The second factor is that some of the understudies haven't been. Like the at Leinster and at national level, nobody's completely blown the coaches away to the point where Sexton has been under any real threat. Granted, the bar to reach there is pretty high. One of Carbery's reasons for that has been his fitness, and he is getting to the point, or he's probably already at the point, where you constantly have this worry around Carbery is how robust can he be, like how many minutes will he last at the weekend. Now that's due to, I suppose, coming back from injury and this being one of his first games back from injury, but also if he is your starting out half and Sexton in an alternate universe is out for the entire Six Nations, how many games would you have expected to get out of Carbery over the next little while? So that's a real concern. But the one way you can actually alleviate some of those concerns is by throwing Carbery into the deep end, and he's been forced to throw him in this weekend. So it absolutely is a good thing.
You wouldn't have done it unless your man wasn't limping around, but yeah. And I look back sort of at the games that he started. Like, he's 26 and he seems as if he's been around for ages, right? He's been 6 years. This is, I think it's his 9th ever start for Ireland. That is a really he has a note, like he might, I don't know, is he 25 or more caps,
something like that, yeah.
That's incredible. And like, when you look at the quality of games, they're not great. Like, it's Japan and the USA last July, a warm-up game against Italy in August 2019, November international against the US in 2018, Italy and Chicago the same year. Like, they're not. There was an Australia game in there as well that was probably the climax of it so far, but they're not. These are not quality games. This is a real step up for Joey Carbery at the weekend. And like, you're right, I think opportunity, obviously when he was at Leinster, injury has dogged him a little bit as well, and then form, and like, it's got to be the coming together for Joey Carbery this weekend. It's his big opportunity to tell Andy Farrell and the nation that it's grand. When you talk about the difference of the quality, the difference in quality, Sexton's up here and the rest of them are fighting out for second place. This is the biggest opportunity that any of them so far have got to say, it's grand, I got it. Yeah,
like what is interesting is that this opportunity for Carbery essentially came up 2.5 years ago. Like at the 2019 World Cup, there was a premeditated decision to rest Johnny Sexton for the game against Japan, and Carbery wasn't available, and Carty ends up being that guy. So like, this is how far back this thing goes. That is how frustrating it has been for the last 2.5 years for him, that I would make a case that if Carbery was in the first game against England in the 2019 Six Nations, for example, people would have less trepidation about that than they have about this weekend. He's 3 years older, he's 3 years wiser, and yet there are people have way more concerns.
You give him a break. He's a young fella. It's fine. He's just. But in terms of his caps, he's still that guy.
I basically think that question marks have emerged over the last little while, and I accept that they are unfair question marks because he just hasn't played enough rugby. But I do think that there are legitimate question marks over how robust he is. So, like, this is like the opportunity for Carbery to say, that's nonsense. You're talking nonsense. I mean, I've just been unlucky with injuries over the last little while. I haven't hit those heights because I just haven't been on the pitch enough to hit those heights. This weekend is where he puts that down, because when you're talking about some of the more talented players in the Six Nations, I'm not for 1 second suggesting that he was anywhere near the talent of Antoine Dupont or Ntamak a few years ago. But like, he was
One far off it in an Irish context.
In an Irish context, he was definitely the kid who was going to take Sexton's jersey. And I mean, this is, I guess, when you put them in parallel with the French opponents that he's got this weekend, he's got to be looking across the line at the halfbacks for France and saying, okay, maybe the hype around them and like, I mean, Dupont is World Player of the Year. I'm not drawing any parallels, but he's got to be thinking, I can at least hold a candle to them. I'm as talented as at least some of those backs that are going to be lining out for France this weekend. So if he has it in him to actually reach that level when Sexton does depart the scene, then we're going to see that competitive edge come to the fore this week. We're going to see that battle be sustained over the course of this weekend. And in fairness, like, there hasn't been a huge amount of opportunities for us to really question what Carbery's mentality is like. In fairness, he's bounced back from injury time and time again. Maybe that shows a real sense of fortitude. The bottom line with Carbery is we don't know. And this weekend we'll know more.
Agreed, with any of them. And actually Dara O'Toole picks up the point on YouTube. He says, good morning to you, Dara. He says Jack Carty's the next Irish 10. He plays under more pressure with less good ball delivery than any other 10 in Ireland consistently. He's also the only 10 that's captain on his club team. And I do think that there is that element of Carbery suddenly, like all those games that I listed off earlier on, suddenly he's in pretty much a first pick Irish 15 with the best players around him, which is an opportunity he hasn't had before, and we maybe have an opportunity to see a slightly different Joey Carbery, to give him his due and to slightly counter the point that you're making there, Dara. And plenty of other comments coming into us as well. Come on, you Gunnar Sasachin, who's also saying John Claffey saying Westmeath lads in their 20s struggle to hurl. Can only imagine what the 40-year-olds are like, which is a fair enough shout. It's a bit of hackery, all right, to be fair. Yeah, plenty of other comments coming in there about the hurling and all the stuff as well besides, so keep those coming into us. But before all of that, we have some beef.
Well, I don't like him, and I don't have to work with people I don't like.
Patrick Vieira is 6'4", starts having a go at Gary Neville. He says, come and have a go at me.
You should have gone to Specsavers, Charlie.
Well, maybe you should go also then, Jeff, because you couldn't see driving home the other night.
Don't you ever talk about me!
So I think your arguments back and forward there, Tony. That's the point.
I'm wondering...
Just let me finish. Let me finish.
I'm let you finish.
It's pure constipated.
You can forget about Sean Kavanagh as far as he's a man.
If you're going to be critical, then you've got to make sure you've got something to back it up with, don't you?
Maybe the coaches were maybe panicking a little bit.
To me, you've got to have a little bit of a better record than that. The beef is real.
Okay, we are quickly bringing you some NBA beef this morning because it was NBA trade deadline day yesterday. The meat of choice this week is Philly cheesesteak because Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, their beef has been cooking along nicely for quite some time and it reached new meaty levels this week. So let's bring you the backstory here. So on one side of this beef, you've got Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers, who was a 2014 third overall pick in the NBA draft. That's him on the left-hand side beside the Kawhi Leonard buzzer beater. If there's ever an opportunity to put that photo on screen, I take it. He's the current front runner for the MVP award, Embiid. Basically, he is good at basketball. On the other side of this beef, you've got Ben Simmons, not of the Philadelphia 76ers anymore. He was a 2016 first overall pick in the NBA draft, Rookie of the Year in the league in 2018. He is also good at basketball, just not good at basketball in the way you'd like your modern basketball players in the backcourt to be good, because basically he can't hit a three-pointer for his life. This has been an issue for quite some time, but it really became a big issue in last season's playoffs, where things started to go very, very wrong publicly for Simmons. So in the playoffs, he becomes the worst free throw shooter in postseason history with at least 67 attempts. His record from the line is just over 34%, worse than Shaquille O'Neal himself. So it becomes an issue where not only can he not shoot the three-pointer, he can barely shoot the free throw line at this point. This all reaches a very embarrassing head in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semi-finals when they're up against the Atlanta Hawks. And as we can see here, Ben Simmons is in this position, number 25, and he decides to pass the ball. Doesn't even take the layup. He's afraid he's going to get fouled if he goes up and he'll be put to the free throw line, so he passes the ball. It is an embarrassing moment. It is an obscene moment. He is 6'11". This becomes a major story in the league. You might think at this point that Simmons needs an arm around his shoulder, but that's not what he gets from his teammate Joel Embiid. And you can tell he's awkward in this post-match interview, Embiid, but it's pretty clear what he thinks the key moment is in that match.
One was, when I don't know how to say it, but I thought the turning point was just, we had an open shot and, we made one free throw and we missed the other, and then they came down and scored, and we didn't get a good possession on the other end, and Trey came back and he made a three, and then from there, down 4, and then he's on me, I turn the ball over, and try to make something happen.
So the turning point was Ben Simmons not taking that layup himself, and Simmons is very upset with this. According to sources in reports recently, he's upset that Embiid blamed him at this point, despite the fact that Simmons did not blame Embiid for their loss to the Raptors in 2019. That's the series with the buzzer beater. The unhappiness then gets taken into the last summer, into the off-season, when he goes to train in Los Angeles and decides his relationship with Embiid is broken. It's run its course. They can't work together again. Embiid calls Simmons' comments in this case disrespectful, and the Sixers can't actually make a trade work. So he's stuck with the Sixers last summer, and then he declines to go back to work for pre-season, citing mental health reasons for his absence. But he does eventually go back in October on the eve of the season. Now this comeback doesn't last long, because on the 19th of October, the day the NBA season starts, Doc Rivers asks him to take part in a training drill. He refuses to do so, and he is sent home. He was then suspended for conduct detrimental to the team, and later that day, Embiid did not hold back when asked about Simmons.
But at the end of the day, our job is not to babysit somebody. We get paid to put just on the court, go out, play hard, win some games. That's all we get paid for. We don't get paid to come out here and try to babysit somebody. And so that's not our job. And I'm sure my teammates feel that way.
And there's more from that same press event.
At this point, I don't care about that man, honestly. He does whatever he wants. That's not my job. That's those guys' jobs. I'm only focused on trying to make the team better, win some games, play hard every night, try to lead, the guys that we have here. And I'm sure they feel the same way, because, our chemistry has been excellent, despite, everything that's been happening in the last few months. Like I said, I don't really care.
So they were stuck in this standoff for the first half of the season. He goes on to become the most fined player in NBA history. Some reports suggested that Ben Simmons had surpassed $10 million in fines by the end of 2021. But yesterday, on trade deadline day, everyone was put out of their misery. The Brooklyn Nets sent James Harden to Philadelphia in exchange for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and 2 future first-round picks. Most importantly, though, Embiid weighed in on Twitter with this post. For our radio listeners, Embiid posted that Twitter meme in which an Instagram user posted that he showed up to one of my biggest haters' funerals just to make sure that his hater was dead. So the beef is realer than ever after this. But March the 11th, stick it down in your calendar, where the beef may get even realer again, because the Brooklyn Nets are in Philadelphia, and I dare say that the home crowd will not give Ben Simmons an inch that night. That is, this week's beef is real.
Well, I don't like him. And I don't have to work with people I don't like.
Patrick Vieira is 6'4". Starts having a go at Gary Neville. He says, come and have a go at me.
You should have gone to Specsavers, Charlie.
Well, maybe you should go also then, Jeff, because you couldn't see driving home the other night.
Don't you ever talk about me.
So I think your arguments back and forward there, Tony. That's the point.
I'm wondering...
Just let me finish. Let me finish.
I'm let you finish. It's pure constipated.
You can forget about Sean Kavanagh as far as he's a man.
If you're going to be critical, then you've got to make sure you've got something to back it up with, don't you?
Maybe the coaches were maybe panicking a little bit.
To me, you've got to have a little bit of a better record than that. The beef is real.
The beef is real. 5 to 8 Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 for you this morning. We're going to get into our quick picks. Will is standing by. Tom is standing by in just a couple of moments' time. Update you on where the table is at after last week as well. Vinny Perth is going to talk Liverpool. He's going to talk B-Rodgers and exactly where his stock is at this morning after the 2-0 defeat last night. Probably a bit of Arsenal as well. And looking ahead to the weekend, we'll let you know what's happening across the back pages. An interesting story developing from the Winter Olympics this morning as well. Let you know about that a little bit later on. Alan Quinlan will look ahead obviously to Le Crunch, as we're obliged by contract to call it, this weekend. Ireland against France in the Six Nations. We're going to talk to two lads who 20 years ago were lining up for Galwegians and are now preparing to row 5,000 kilometres across the Atlantic in a boat, and it's pretty insane. We're going to talk to Fergus, Farrell and Damian Browne at 5 to 9. Crappy quiz, live crappy quiz. I know it's what you're all hanging around for. Owen's been busy all week, and 10 past 9 coming your way there, and then Colin Fennelly in conversation with OTB last night from 9:30 this morning. So that is that. But right now, 5 to 8 quick picks.
Some of these critics, these pundits.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
I'd like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just miss you like you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
Well, good morning to you, Tommy. How are you getting on?
Morning, chaps.
Morning, lads. Scandalous omission of not having hurling predictions last week for the start of the league. Thankfully now, with the football break, we get to do all the hurling quick picks across Division 1 this week.
Well, you need to focus more on not calling draws to, you know, that's where the real beef is in this thing.
But the draws may well be, Adrian, where the profit might be from this week, because there's going to be one or two, I think, quite close games, not to spoil the predictions coming up in a few minutes' time. And on this show, oftentimes we like to kind of nail our colours to the mast and go, that team's going to win, they're going to destroy the other team. I think this weekend there's a couple of games where draws could potentially happen.
The great caveat in all of this is that, Will, you're campaigning for more importance to be placed in the hurling league, and then you decline to remove Limerick off the top of your power rankings after they were beaten in the hurling league. So does it matter or does it not, Will?
Look, if any lesson was learned from last year, Owen, it was the people who questioned Limerick after 3 games of the National Hurling League when they hadn't won. And people were wondering, maybe this Limerick team are coming towards the end of a cycle, or are they having a stuttering start? Is COVID affecting them? Are they going to be the team that we thought they were last year when they go into a knockout championship later in the year? And Limerick went on to be the best team in the country again. They've got so much credit in the bank, it is going to take a little while to knock them off the top of those power rankings. Even if they don't win against Galway this weekend, I think Limerick, just based on what they've done over the last 3 or 4 years, are going to sit top for a while. And this is a Limerick team without Cian Lynch. He's been ripping it up in college hurling as opposed to inter-county. And again, I think they'll just keep going without him. And maybe Limerick might learn a little bit about their panel against Galway this week as well. Can we have a look at the standings? Have we got a mark?
Oh, I don't know if we have the table.
We know standings. Is that because this is usual crap where I do really well and then it just doesn't appear for a couple of weeks, and as soon as I get knocked off the standings, suddenly before you know it on, it's like, you know.
Well, you had the first week off, Adrian, so I don't know.
I know, and I think I'm still probably ahead of a couple of you.
Look, we're all here for a good time, Adrian. It doesn't matter about the table at this stage.
Limerick against Galway. Limerick against Galway. Well, so the truest endorsement of what Owen has been talking about there would be for you to go for Limerick this weekend. We can take a look at which way everybody's going. And Will, you're that fence, you back in the fence.
Splinters right here. Yeah, this thing, and this isn't trying to appeal to Galway people who are annoyed about where they were in the power rankings in the opening week. I genuinely think that with Limerick, what we saw last week, very low scoring for them to only score 11 points at Wexford Park. I'm not saying that they're going to be vulnerable, but this Galway team started very well, albeit against, you know, opposition coming out of Division 2 from last year. They scored 422, could easily have scored 722 or 822 last week. So they've started the season with a big kind of scoring intent about them. We didn't see that about Limerick, where they got tied up, particularly their full forwards last week. Why can't Galway, Saturday night hurling, under the lights at the Gaelic grounds, go and put in a big performance under Henry Shefflin tomorrow and keep Limerick to a draw? I think Limerick will still rook out a result out of the game, But I think this game is going to be very close, and whoever wins it is probably going to only win it by a couple of points anyway. And we've had some good battles between these sides. It makes for good matchups, even with Galway having a slight difference in personnel this year, and obviously Joe Canning's not around this time round, but similarly Cian Lynch is not going to be in midfield for Limerick on Saturday night. I think they match up very well with Limerick physically, and as a result I think this is going to be close. Even if it doesn't end up being a draw, I'd be surprised if there was more than a couple of points between the sides come full time. They
can't be as bad as last weekend, Tommy, is my logic for Limerick here.
100%, Adrian, and I agree with Will. I think it is going to be close, and I think that Henry is going to get a tune out of Galway very, very quickly that we're all going to be impressed by. But I just think with Limerick there has to be a sting in the tail, and I know this is something that we said about Dublin after beaten by Mayo and it rolled into 3 defeats in a row now, but the colour looked like it had drained from the Limerick faces the last day after Wexford. So they are definitely not in the same mark as Dublin in terms of the great teams that we've been seeing at the minute. Limerick aren't finished yet. They aren't. I don't think they're on the way down yet. So I'd be expecting them to come back with a bit of a vengeance this weekend, and I think it will be close-ish. But I do think Limerick will pull away and win maybe 5 or 6, is what I'm calling.
Wow. Your margin is not. My margin is definitely not that big.
No, not. I think Will could be onto something with the draw here. It's a really good, interesting early marker for Galway this year to kind of see where they are in relation to Limerick, because the notion has been out there over the last little while that Galway may have the physicality to be the team to beat Limerick, and I guess they, to a point, proved that last year in the league. But as Limerick proved then, they don't really care too much about this competition, which is why I'm not overly confident in my prediction. But backing against Limerick just feels like not a correct thing to do at this point, or at any point.
Concur with that. Antrim against Dublin is one that, on the face of it, we've all gone one direction, and we could all look like mugs will come Sunday evening here. Like, my main thing is I'm sort of half expecting natural order to resume after some outcomes or certainly some scorelines last week that maybe made a few of us question what we were thinking about it. But like, there is also, given the conversation we've just been having, a big case for Antrim here. They did very well last year. They took a couple of big scalps. Dublin, interestingly, in the league last year had most to spare over them, and that's probably why I'm leaning a little bit for Dublin in this one.
Yeah, look, Dublin has started the year extremely well. They won the Walsh Cup. They put Wexford to the sword in Croke Park a few weeks ago, just before the start of the campaign. Dublin backed up that performance by getting a very credible draw against Waterford last weekend, even having to battle after the cards that were handed out in the second half. And similarly, I saw Antrim play against Offaly in the Walsh Cup a few weeks ago, where Antrim put out pretty much their first strength 15. And in a game where they had to play a man short for more than a half, they actually won the second half 14 against 15 against Offaly. If they hadn't been so far behind at half time in that game, Antrim could well have won. And then Antrim went and played Kilkenny on the back of their games against Galway and Offaly, where they played reasonably well in the group stages of the Walsh Cup, and put in a really good performance against what would have to be called an experimental enough Kilkenny team. Kilkenny would probably be closer to their first team for their game against Tipperary this week, but Antrim definitely impressed in defeat last week. And that makes this one a really difficult one to call, especially, let's see how Dublin are on the road. But I think Matty Kenny is targeting the start of the year for Dublin to try and get off to a really good start. And so, unfortunately, boringly, I've gone with you guys in picking up a Dublin 2 points here.
It's the one game that it's guaranteed to end in a draw now, Will.
That'd be typical.
I thought when Tommy was talking about the Dublin arc earlier on, he was referring to the Dublin hurlers, because they're just going to the moon at the moment, aren't they? And there's no stopping them. And I would be surprised that even in the confines of Corrigan Park were they to get beaten. That's cliche bingo with Antrim. Very passionate people up there in and around certain parts. Corrigan Park, tough place to go. These two things are definitely true, and would make you question backing Dublin in that sort of environment. But as Will says, they've been excellent so far this year. I think this is going to be another win for Dublin.
Yeah, and they've beaten Clare, they've beaten Laois, like they're all the cliches you want, but actually Antrim have, I think, a good case on this one. Tommy actually reminds me a little bit like Charlie Haughey, because depending on whatever county you land on, he's got, it's like Tommy Bingo here. He's got associations with so many counties around the country that he's his bias knows no bounds. So Clare against Wexford, I have to say, a game that I was totally torn on. I'd written down one thing and then I changed it, and then having sent it through I thought, I need to change it again. But anyway, I've gone for Clare. Let's see which way everybody's going. Needless to say, Tommy is with me and the other two lads are going against us.
I thought this was a very, very tough one. I'd be intrigued to hear what Will's logic was in this, because on the one hand, Clare, I don't think we've got a team sheet yet, do we? John Conlon could be back for Clare this weekend, which is obviously a huge addition. They were second best against Cork last week, so you're going to need an improvement for them. The whole control on this is Cork. How good were Cork last week? Were Cork that much better than Clare, or were Clare bad? We don't know yet. We'll know this weekend. I'm hedging my bets on the fact that Cork maybe beat them relatively healthily last week without being amazing. Wexford's defence last week gives me great encouragement, playing a lot of big men at the back, which I just feel is conducive to a pretty good league campaign. I know Limerick weren't great last week, but 11 points, their lowest total since 2010 in a league game. That's an extremely impressive defensive outing from Wexford. I will back a defence in this sort of thing in league time. The one issue that I really kind of weighed up at the end is the venue. And if you want to roll that cliche bingo again, the venue thing is a massive facet when it comes to Wexford in particular and Wexford Park. This game not being in Wexford Park and being in Cusack Park instead, I feel is a real feather in the cap for you guys tipping Clare. And I guess the fact that Clare won this fixture by 3 points last summer as well suggests that they are a little bit better, but I'm backing Wexford to just close that a little bit, and the fact that their defence looked so good last week. Yeah,
well, you talk about Limerick. Wexford scored nothing themselves, and that's a big part of my rationale. And I also think that I'd go heavy in on Owen's point, Tommy, about Cork. I would say they're just a really good team, so that would be my logic for expecting a Clare bounce back.
Similarly to your point there, Adrian, Clare were a point up after 25 minutes or 23 minutes the last day. And it was incredible. Cork spelled them before half time. I think they put up 1-9. And the game was essentially over then at half time. This is Brian Lohan's third year in charge of Clare. They would have been really disappointed with coming home from Cork the last night. They're at home. He's going to want to make a statement. I think home form in the league, or home advantage in the league, is a big thing. And I don't think there's a whole pile. I know Will has done his power rankings out and he's been getting a bit of grief for them, but I don't think there's a whole pile between the teams in the middle pack, between Galway and ninth, in and around to the probably number 2. Who's number 2 in your power rankings? Will?
Cork at the moment, but just ahead of Waterford, but not a huge amount in that.
There really isn't a huge amount between those 8 teams there. They all have an opportunity this year to possibly challenge Limerick. So I just think Clare, there's going to be a response in Cusack Park this weekend. You saw the incredible story during the week of St. Joseph Tulla winning the Harty Cup, beating Ardscoil Rish. If you don't get a response off the back of that, I don't know.
The response, I think, Will, is going to come after Davies' comments on the Sunday game. I suddenly found myself going, what's he going to have to say about this? This is going to be epic. And he was pretty critical of them, wasn't he? Was it a positional, they don't know what they're doing type comment?
Yeah, as the philosopher Chris Eubank once said, this game has a little bit of spice about it. And these teams have met so often in Championship in recent years as well, and maybe a little bit of the beef, to use Owen's terminology, has been taken out of it at this stage, because it's not Lohan against Fitzgerald, but still it's weird how he's now a looming presence because he's become a pundit on the Sunday game. So it's going to be intriguing to see what his comments are going to be about either his native county or about Wexford when we get the highlights on Sunday evening. But you look at this game, and the intriguing thing about it is Clare definitely drifted out of it, and Cork were able to get scores at will last weekend. I don't think they're going to defend as loosely as last week. And my concern would be that when I was putting this prediction in yesterday, I actually thought that Rory O'Connor was potentially going to be back for Wexford this weekend. He's been nursing a hamstring injury and then wasn't able to play Sigerson last night, which would indicate that he's not going to be back for this weekend. So it's a Wexford team going to Ennis without Lee Chin and without Rory O'Connor. And given how many scores Rory O'Connor gets for the team, it puts a lot of pressure back onto MacDonald to almost carry a lot of the scoring load and Jack O'Connor within that forward line for Wexford, which makes me wonder about the prediction. This one is such a difficult one to call as a result of that. And Clare people will probably think they've got the number over Wexford in Championship over the last couple of years and that they'll just carry on and win this weekend. I think there'll be a response from Clare, but if Wexford hurl with the type of manic aggression that they showed against Limerick last week, I think they've got a good chance of upsetting it in Ennis on Sunday afternoon. Going
to scoot through a few of the next ones. Offaly Cork, we've all gone one direction on that. Waterford against Laois, we've all gone one direction on that. And then Tipperary against Kilkenny. Let's take a look here. It's tip across the board. It's another one that, who the hell knows?
Okay, this is Adrian, before we go on to Kilkenny and Tip, the one thing to remember is that Laois put in a really strong performance against Waterford in the Championship last year, which is almost like a catalyst going into this year, is that if they can perform the way they did in that qualifier, they've got a chance of advancing from where they were under Cheddar Plunkett at the start of last year. And Laois, they're without Paddy Purcell because he's suspended after the red card from last week against Tipperary. But again, they hurled very well against the new look Tipperary team last week. So I know we're kind of writing it off and Cork should win handsomely in Burr against Offaly, but Laois could actually put it up to Waterford in the other game. I fully expect the Waterford are going to win, but I think you have to respect the way Laois hurled against them last year.
It's only that you mentioned Laois. You should all feel embarrassed, yourself and Tommy, particularly after last weekend, and the comeuppance that Laois were on the end of again at the hands of Westmeath. I don't know what you lads are thinking. It totally undermines any credibility that you have in any of these conversations ever. The nonsense
you
that they keep banging on.
There was a comment on the.
I did not call Laois. It was a misgraphic. If you watch it back,
there was a comment on the Football Power Ranking saying that I and Westmeath need to get a room. Turns out we have a room.
Wow.
Me and Adrian Barry on a Friday morning.
Now this is we're moving into proper spice bag territory here. You're going with tip on.
I'm going with tip in this one. Yeah, like I think that the Kilkenny performance, the mystery of the Antrim performance last week, given it wasn't on League Sunday, is something that we're looking at in kind of cold numbers, and the Tipperary kind of recovery after the loss of the Mahers is going to be something that possibly gives them added motivation over the course of these next few weeks. There are a couple of spots up for grabs in that team. They're playing at home this weekend. For me, it's just edging it. Like I appreciate why Will is going for a draw in a lot of these games, because these games are patently close and impossible to call. We do realise that like there's a small probability of a draw. There is a greater probability of just picking a side in defence here, Will. So I think he should be applauded rather than being criticised for sitting on defence too much.
Yeah, look, Kilkenny obviously will be watching on tomorrow afternoon to see how TJ Reid and his teammates at Ballyhale get on, and he transforms them when he comes back into the team in a few weeks' time. Without him now, you look at how experimental they went against Antrim last week. I'm intrigued to see 9 o'clock tonight when the team sheet comes out from Kilkenny, because Cody tends to put out a pretty legit team ahead of the weekend. What kind of side Kilkenny pick for this week? Because last week, obviously we didn't get to see the footage of it because it wasn't shown in the highlights, but in all the reports there was a feeling that Kilkenny had deliberately gone a little bit experimental week on, not in a disrespectful way to Antrim, but they knew they had Tipperary week 2, so it was a good chance to maybe try some players out and to look at positions on week 1 and then to try and go towards a stronger team when they play against their rivals. Kilkenny and Tip could be playing over Tiddlywinks, and they're going to go at each other on Sunday afternoon. So I'm intrigued to see what kind of response Kilkenny put up after being a bit lacklustre last week. And Tipperary, I saw a bit of the video of the game against Laois. They had weird stages in that game. I know missing the penalty would have put them into a very comfortable position, and they almost left Laois in the game, where Enda Rowland, the Laois goalkeeper, was able to send over some long-range frees to keep them within touch. But Tip will feel that they probably should have killed the game in the second half when Laois went down to men. Weren't able to do so. And let's see if they can find that clinical edge when they play against Kilkenny.
The AIB All-Ireland Club Championship finals obviously this weekend as well. Let's take a quick look at which way we've all gone on this. I'm going for Crokes. This is my Tommy hat on, but also I do think they'll win it. Like I think that.
What's the argument for it, Adrian?
It's been. I know that people are saying, obviously, without Paul Mannion, that they might come a cropper, and I also think there's a bit like everybody hates us and we don't care about Kimco Crokes in terms of the narrative that builds around them. But
can I ask? Like, obviously, you've got a good insight here as coach of the under 3s at Kimco Crokes. What are you seeing at grassroots level that's inspiring you?
It's the under 6s zone. Let's get it right here. Let's get it right. Like, look, I definitely think you could watch Crokes this year and come to the conclusion that you three mugs have come up with. I totally accept that there have been games where they've played a half of football and have managed to scrape over the line, and I just think that that's not going to be the case this weekend. That I think they'll turn up for the full game, and we'll get it done on. And I'll be down there in Glenalban afterwards with a pint in hand, enjoying myself. That's kind
with your cheese. Your wine and your cheese.
Yeah, big weekend. Big weekend. Kilmacud and Ireland. All the guys are at this weekend. Like, Tommy, I actually just want a question for you. Is this like your nirvana this week? Seeing Kilcoo 4 points, Kilmacud 5 points at full time at the weekend. Like, is this what you live for as a GAA dyed in the wool fan?
Are you saying that I'd like to see a brawl this weekend? Absolutely.
No, I mean it's going to be turgid. There's every possibility that it's going to, like, sometimes we see these two teams like this who play football that hasn't been amazing during the year, effective, don't get me wrong, and the game ends up being a cracker. Like, I mean, it sometimes defies all logic, but if we're assuming that it's not going to defy logic, we're not expecting a belter this weekend.
No, I think you're right. I think it is going to be that type of game. Although, like, I do think Kilcoo are a different animal than what Crokes have met so far this year. I think Crokes have got away with it at times. I think in Pearses in the semi-final, Pearses will probably have regrets about not going for that game enough when they probably had the chance to. And Crokes were very good at managing that game as it went on. I just think Kilcoo with the Brannigans, they got away with what happened at the end of the game against Finbars. I just think there's too much quality in that field from Kilcoo across the board. They're sick after Carl Finn bet them after extra time in 2019. They feel like this is their chance, and I just think Adrian's going to be crying into his cheese board on Saturday.
Let's see what way the hurling has gone. It's a split vote there, and we don't have a huge amount of time to get into it, but we do have, just before we leave the quick picks, Will's 30-second review of Les Mis.
Really good, very good production. I had to wait quite a while for this as well, Adrian, because I think I bought the tickets about 2 years ago, and it was like a year lead in to when it was due to be on last summer, and then COVID-19 intervened, and it's primarily the London cast who've come over, so it's a really, really strong cast. Lots of, the actor who's playing Javert has been doing Les Mis since 2002, so that just goes to show how talented the cast were. But the choreography is excellent. The use of the backdrops and the Bord Gáis was just incredible. Les Mis is a fantastic musical anyway, and if people, there are still a few tickets available, because I'm guessing some people probably sent them back when they weren't able to go at this time of year when it was rescheduled. It's running for a few weeks. I think it's running for 3 weeks at the Bord Gáis. If you got a chance to get tickets, go and watch Les Mis.
Will O'Callaghan has not been paid for this slot, and nor was he teed up about it. That was an incredible review. What's the main song in Les Mis?
Probably Bring Him Home, maybe One Day More. There's a load of hits.
Bring Him Home, how does it go?
Bring Him Home is like the massive solo that Jean Valjean has early in Act 2.
It's a blaster, Will.
I'm not singing. Definitely not singing one of the most difficult songs to sing on a solo out of nowhere on OTB AM with no music behind me whatsoever. I want to come out of here with some credibility. The hurling rankings.
The credibility is gone.
Yeah, the quick picks and the hurling rankings steal the credibility enough. Let me leave with something out in the studio this morning.
Thanks, lads. That's quick picks.
Cheers.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
All right, it's 8:15. It's Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM. Still lots to come. Pack show right here, and crappy quiz after 9 o'clock. We're going to be talking rugby with Alan Quinlan. Up next, football, Vinny Perth.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Six Nations Show on OTB Sports Radio.
Excuse me, that's a bit offensive to us because we're Welsh. You could just keep your own opinion to yourself.
It's spinning! It's spinning!
Updates, analysis and opinion across all OTB channels from start to finish.
Go on, Alan!
I've never seen a team like Ireland before.
The Six Nations on OTB. Don't miss a moment of the action. Subscribe to the OTB Rugby podcast feed on the OTB Sports app now.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, it's almost 17 minutes past 8. It's Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM. A very good morning to you, wherever it is you're at. Keep the comments coming into us about the football, the rugby, and anything else it is that you're having yourself. Vinny Perth, good morning to you.
Morning, how are we doing, man?
Going good. You were watching Liverpool beat Leicester 2-0 last night. I know the chance, obviously, for Liverpool to remind Brendan Rodgers about that he was punching above his weight in that relationship, and that was certainly how it worked out last night. Only for Schmeichel, Vinny, it could have been a bit more.
Yeah, I thought Liverpool were really, really good. Started the game really well and just dominated. Leicester, I suppose, were under par as well, which helped Liverpool on the day, but I think there was huge positives for Liverpool. They've spent a month or nearly 6 weeks at this stage without Salah and Mane, and albeit they haven't played lots of league games, they've continuously won or done really well. So it was a really positive night for Liverpool. Diaz looks like, again, Liverpool's recruitment department, by and large, have made really good decisions over the last number of years. You compare that to other clubs, like Jota has been an amazing signing for them. And Diaz just looks like a proper, real Liverpool style of player under Klopp. He looks a perfect fit. He's only played a game and a half, and for me, he looks outstanding. Looks a real find. And to be honest with you, it might sound strange to some people, but you can see him putting Mane under lots of pressure. That's how good he is in that position for me. So it's what a manager wants, real strength and depth for Liverpool. So a really good night for them, albeit I still have some concerns about their midfield. I think that's what's holding them back at the moment. But excellent night for Liverpool, and Alisson had almost nothing to do on the night.
Say all of Klopp's attacking options are fit for the second leg of the Inter Milan game, for example. Who are you starting now in that front three?
I suppose from a manager and where you're coming from, it would be hard not to go with Mane, Salah and Jota. They're the form three for Liverpool. Firmino's form has dipped off a little bit over the last sort of 12, 18 months, and which is great that Jota has come in and sort of scored all them goals. So, yes, at the moment, I would say Mane will come back into the team, but I'd be on red alert if I was him. This guy Diaz looks the real deal, and if he continues to do what he's doing, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes his place. But Liverpool's front three, you'd expect would be Jota, Mane and Salah.
What's he doing, Vinny? What sort of a player is he? Why are you so bowled over by him?
I think he just looks like he suits Liverpool, which in terms of the way they play. So he's got that high energy. Liverpool obviously into that counter press. So it looks like he that's why they scouted him, and obviously they've spotted that from his former clubs. But he's high press. He closes people down, but also he's got real skill and ability on the ball. He's brilliant with the ball at his feet, dribbling. The goal the other day that Minamino scored, his sort of little 1-2 with himself on the end line, that great feet, quick feet, it was brilliant. So he looks like he has a bit of everything in terms of that work rate. There was a tackle last night where he recovered a 10-yard run, sliding tackle, won the ball back for Liverpool, and the stadium got to their feet from him. It's little things like that win fans over, and they're great. Like James Milner has all of that stuff, but he has the other stuff as well. He has amazing feet, good close control, and I would say there's a goal scorer in him as well. That will come in time. I'd say he's just waiting. I think if he gets one, it's only been a game and a half, I think he'll go on and score goals. So he looks genuine, looks the real deal, albeit it's only a game and a half.
Vinny, what's your take on where Brendan Rodgers and Leicester City are at? Because like Rodgers, speaking in the aftermath of the game, said that the set pieces are an Achilles heel for us, and they conceded again last night, that there are noticeable weaknesses in this team that, despite the injuries, it seems Rodgers is incapable of fixing at the moment. Like it does seem the mood has changed and the stocks have lowered on Brendan Rodgers quite considerably over the last couple of months.
Yeah, it was interesting when Liverpool got the corner where I think it was Van Dijk. Van Dijk got the free header, and then they scored off the second one just before that corner. My friend of mine, and I said to him, the two of us sort of agreed, this is a real chance for Liverpool because of. So if I know that and people sitting on the sofa know that, then Brendan Rodgers knows it, and you can be sure he's tried to fix it on the training ground. And I think there's a couple of things with Rodgers and where he stands. First of all, the loss of Fofana in the pre-season friendly, where just a ridiculous tackle where he got his leg broken, has been a huge blow for them. Johnny Evans has missed a lot of the season. So they've been really short in that centre half position. The Swedish international Vestergaard, who I thought was a good player, he hasn't played either. He's been in and out of form. So there's been some. The problem hasn't been scoring goals, Leicester. It's been conceding, and as you alluded to, their set pieces. I think that's 13 goals last night, mate. I think it was 12 up until last night. So I think that's 13 set piece goals to give away. So that's a huge problem, and ultimately that will come back to the manager. But when you lose, big centre halves, like they've had to play Ndidi as centre half at different stages. So yeah, I think you've got to give Rodgers a little bit. He has credit in the bank for me. There will be a lot of noise around his job, but when you look at the team that started last night, Albrighton, Luckman and Daka as his front three, I mean, and he's picked them, but people like Vardy obviously is the obvious one, has missed a lot of football this year. But if you think back to 12, 18 months ago, Iheanacho was excellent for them. Tillemans, Harvey Barnes, people like that. Chowdhury, these were first team players, and there's a lot of players who have lost a bit of form or a lot of injuries in that club, and you've got to give Rodgers a little bit of time. And when you compare, say, a club like Leicester to Everton would love to have the headaches that Leicester are having at the moment, just going through a bad run, comfortably mid-table, but over the last 3 years I think they finished 5th twice and won an FA Cup. So I think you've got to just breathe a little bit if you own Leicester or you support them and give Rodgers a little bit of time to turn it around for me.
That's coming from a football manager, and like football is not often like that, Vinny. And look, you're right. And also the thing is, like, there's plenty of teams, good teams in the Premier League that are going to lose 2-0 to Liverpool this season as well. But you mentioned, I think, was Iheanacho one of the players that he ditched out last night after the Forest game at the weekend? He is the favoured in the market to be the next Premier League manager that's sacked. The conversation will start to bubble up unless he arrests this sometime soon. From what you were seeing last night, did there look like, in terms of the relationship between Rodgers and, you were saying, obviously there's a very obvious situation unfolding in the pitch and his ability to change that, did it look, in a footballing sense, when you forget about the noise, like as if there was a growing detachment from what you could see last night? Or was it stuff that you think, if you could just regroup, I know obviously you're talking about players' form, that's an impossible one to know how to fix that in quick order, but from what you could see last night, like, how close do you think that, when I talk about the market and how close he is to the exit door, how close could you see it in a football sense last night to his ability to turn it around or otherwise?
No, I get the noise. Like, I get, I'm obviously pragmatic in terms of being someone who's a coach and is looking at the bigger picture, and football doesn't run that way and football clubs don't generally run that way. But and one thing that I did notice is they didn't go into the market in the January window. So that's where we don't know exactly what's going on in the club. So they signed 3 players last summer for around 55 million. But by all accounts, Leicester City lost 60, 70 million in the pandemic through gate receipts, etc., like anyone else. So while you've got very wealthy owners, they're not the billionaires of others. So there may be a process in that club where it's a rebuild. When you look at Luke Thomas at fullback, Justin, the other fullback, young players, Dewsbury Hall in midfield, there may be a little process going on in Leicester where it's just a rebuilding process. And as I said, when you add in those players, like, we all thought Tielemans was good enough. Well, a lot of us considered someone like Tielemans good enough to go to maybe in Manchester United, maybe do a job in Liverpool. And I still think he has that capabilities. But he's been on the bench a little bit of late. He's lost a bit of form. And managers take responsibility for players losing form. So I think it's a combination of all of those little bits and pieces that would I be shocked if Brendan Rodgers went to Liverpool or to Manchester United at the end of the season? No, I wouldn't be shocked. Would it be a difficult job for him? Yes, because of his Liverpool connections, etc., etc. But he is held in a high regard in English football. He is an outstanding manager. And I just think where you consider that Leicester club and what he's done in his time there, winning the FA Cup, as I said, for the first time in their history, and being in around that sort of 5th position, outside of the so-called top 6, he's done a remarkable job. And I think if Arteta won an FA Cup this year and finished 5th, it would be considered close enough to success, and that's what Rodgers has generally done with Leicester. So I'm on his side on this one. I think we've got to breathe a little bit and give him some time, and hopefully not that the Leicester board will be listening to me, but I hope that's what they do.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I don't think like there's any question of his job being under threat. I guess the conversation around Rodgers was such a glowing one a year ago, and as you say, the Manchester United links seemed real even when Lampard was sacked as Chelsea manager. It felt like there was going to be a Chelsea move for Brendan Rodgers. So I guess the question is, can you see him getting back into that conversation again? Because it does seem that the Manchester United one is a separate case, because I don't know, people needed to be reminded of his Liverpool history or something, and maybe Rafa and how quickly he was hounded out of Everton maybe would dissuade a club from going after a previous manager of a rival.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point on that. You know, the Rafa thing is in people's mind at the moment. Whether it's in people at board level, that's separate. I don't know, but I understand that comparison. So the only difference is he's probably. I just think someone like Rodgers goes in and he revitalises the club from the bottom all the way up, and I think that's probably what Manchester United need. We're not discussing Manchester United at the moment, but when you consider what they've done in appointing Ranić, and you consider he walked into the job on his own. I was at his first game against Young Boys, and I was there for the warm-up, and the nerd in me, and I was there an hour and a half early. It was just bizarre to see him walking in on his own, no assistant manager, no coaching staff came with him, no team of people came with him. When you think of the modern day coach, comes with a team of 5, 6, 7, up to 12 people. And when you compare that to, say, a Rodgers going in, there's no way he would be that underprepared that Rangnick looks like. And the results of the way Rangnick is so underprepared is playing out on the pitch, because there's no difference to them than what they were under Solskjaer. Maybe a difference in shape, but not in results. So Rodgers, for me, would be a brilliant fit for Manchester United. But do I think he'll get the job? I don't think so. I think he's got a job in his hands. He's under a bit of noise and pressure. I get that. I would like to think not in the club for all the reasons I pointed out. But you wouldn't be shocked if this Leicester side got a few players back, and I know Fofana is back training. They got a few players back and ended up in sort of 6th, 7th come the end of the season. And I think Rodgers has pointed out that the squad does need rebuilding. As I said, when you look at Lookman, who's on loan from the German club, and you look at Albrighton, they're not players that are going to get you wingers. They're going to get you into the top 6, 5 in the Premiership at the moment, the way the league has been played. So, and as I said, they're scoring enough goals. It's just they've lost so many centre halves that there's enough of a case to make for Brendan Rodgers, I have to say.
I just wanted to ask you one more thing about Liverpool last night, Vinny, and there does seem to be a little bit of frustration from a Liverpool supporting standpoint about Curtis Jones and maybe his lack of intent when it comes to being in possession of the ball and not releasing the ball quick enough from midfield. It does seem that maybe Harvey Elliott, if we're looking at the stocks of those young Liverpool midfielders, is a touch above Curtis Jones at the moment. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it is on terms of what you see on the pitch. I thought the difference when Harvey Elliott came on last night was outstanding. He gave the whole crowd a lift, and obviously Salah came on at the same time as well, so the noise level went up. For me, that's a concern in Liverpool in terms of their midfield. I think Jordan Henderson has missed a lot of football at different stages. So I think if Liverpool are playing their best midfield, it's probably Fabinho, Henderson, and now at this stage there's an argument between Harvey Elliott and Thiago, and that's how good and I think Elliott has looked when he's played for them. But I still think they need to be careful. I think they need to get a player into that midfield, because they just can't rely on Henderson and the way they want to play in terms of that high line, that high press. You look at someone like Jude Bellingham, and you say they need to go out and spend big money on a player like that. And it's a bit like Diaz. Are we seeing the end of Jota? The recruitment seeing the end of Firmino to a point in terms of his form was dropping off. Great bit of business, got Jota in, and he's now taken Firmino's role. You can see Diaz is going to put Mane under pressure, as I said. So they've got to now act and go after a big name player into that midfield, because we've talked on the show before about how Liverpool play, that high press. There's a reason. Everyone wants to know why Liverpool are playing that high press, and it looks like they're about to concede a goal. And Klopp's mindset is almost like, well, if they score 2, we'll score 3 because of our high press. So it's that midfield position. They don't play the way Man City do, so they don't have a Gundogan and a Silva bopping the ball around in short passes. It's high energy and it's high speed in there. So I think they've got to go and spend big this summer. And it looks like if they're going to close the gap on Man City or stay at that highest level, and you would say that someone like Bellingham looks like the real deal for a club like Liverpool. So, or maybe they've got someone else in mind, but they need someone in that midfield, because that is a concern. It looks like they're an injury or two away from really struggling in midfield.
Yeah, big problems there. Vinny, brilliant stuff as always. Thanks a million.
Thanks very much. See you soon.
Vinny Perth on the line there on All Things Football. Peter G on YouTube wonders if Arsenal are becoming the biggest shithouses in the Premier League. That's a statement I never thought that anybody would ever cross anybody.
Bite your hand off for that title, I think it's fair to say, Peter.
Old man hurling sounds like good fun, says Sachin. Half-paced hurling is probably just elite level in Westmeath. Next up, Adrian plays County, says Izzult Cody. Good morning to you, Izzult. Thanks for the insult.
You forgot the comment there from Cormac Dively, who just says the Athlone bone.
Oh yeah,
good to have you back.
I think that's a regular regular one. And Kaizen on YouTube, I'm having this all day long. Carty will fulfil his destiny in the quarter-final, lads. Just watch. It's written, isn't it? Carbery gets injured. Sexton gets injured. Carbery's out of form. Everybody turns to Carty and deliverance. You having it? No.
Well, like, I mean, if that's what the reality is, then I think we'll all have that. But whether or not that's likelihood, I'm not sure. Like, there was a moment yesterday when I saw I saw the Sexton injury news before I saw the team sheet, and I was like, could he actually go Carty ahead of Carbery here? I wasn't 100% sure.
Oh, yeah, look, I do. Legit question.
Yeah, but he's obviously like there's so much so much hope in Carbery. I mean, that's the thing that, like, it does feel that we've been quite down on Carbery this morning because of his injury past. But the thing is that the reason why we talk about him so much is the genuine hope and the genuine glimpses that we've seen from him in the past. So there's no question who's got the higher ceiling.
Come Monday morning, if he's nailed it on Saturday, this conversation will be totally forgotten. It'll be like, Joey Carbery, it's it. I mean, he'll be putting pressure on Sexton after the World Cup. That's exactly. This tends to be what happens, and that will be legitimate if he goes to Paris and knocks it out the ballpark. Then that's a legitimate conversation. Here's what's happening on the back pages for you this morning. Jump for joy, says the Irish Daily Mail. Farrell excited as Carbery gets his big chance. Jota just gets hotter as Reds keep up chase. He was always going to be long-term Liverpool, wasn't he? On, let's face it, like, he was never. This guy was never leaving Liverpool. He's Liverpool through and through.
Yes,
man and boy.
Absolutely.
Keane fails to agree terms with Sunderland, writes Craig Hope as well. That is a bizarre enough one for me. It seems like, I mean, look at who knows what's happening behind the scenes. We'll probably hear about it because he'll be appearing on some media outlet near you soon, and we'll probably get the details of it. But on the face of it, I would slightly go against what I think might be the general thinking, in that, like, he was right to turn it down. I think if everything was even as he would need it in terms of contract and support and all that sort of stuff, regardless of the level they're at, that's Roy Keane's level now.
Yeah, like, yeah, I'd like to get the inner working of what actually happened over the last little while and on whose end it actually fell down on. I mean, you were relatively hopeful, were you, last week, that Keane could do a good job?
I was hoping he would do it. The phrase I think I used at the time was that he owed it to himself to do it. We don't know behind the scenes. Maybe the contract wasn't been met. Maybe he wasn't been given funds to buy players. Who knows what the little stipulations were that were going on. He'd had a couple of interviews, obviously, with them, and something somewhere fell down. He was obviously interested enough in taking over a League One team to meet them twice. So I don't think that was a factor. And nor should it be for a guy who's been out of the game for 10 years and who speaks very publicly and in a forthright manner about his desire to get back into it.
Yeah,
he won't. I mean, championship is possibly even a little bit beyond him at this point.
Yeah, but it possibly is. Like, it's an unbelievably tough division to manage in. Like, does he got like that hunger for it, where he just inserts himself into the carousel once again and he just goes for the next job? I'm not sure. It does feel that there was like a certain connection to Sunderland that was a big part of the story as well.
With the emotional thing, big time. Yeah, we'll get to some of the rest of the papers before we leave you at 10 this morning. But before that, it's 8:37. You're watching OTB AM, and it is time to talk rugby because it's a monster weekend. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Good. The Joey Carbery news obviously is the thing that's been dominating most of the discussion around it. We were saying earlier on that between opportunity, injury and form, he hasn't really, it's his first Six Nations start. He's 26. It's only his 9th international start, and tomorrow is huge in the context of this guy's career.
Yeah, it is. I think obviously it's a blow to have Johnny Sexton out of the team, and the debate has gone on for a long time about, the gap between Johnny Sexton and the rest. I think there was so much hope and kind of optimism around Joey Carbery, putting pressure on Johnny Sexton, and he's shown glimpses of that over the years. I think issues have been around injuries and him not getting a run of games with Munster and Ireland, but he's certainly a very, very talented player, and it's crazy to think he's 26 caps and this is his first Six Nations start. I think that's probably something that kind of jumped out at a lot of people yesterday, that was the case for him. But I think the way Ireland are playing will benefit him. The fact that a lot of it is there's a lot more shape and attack and quality in that attack that they're trying to achieve, and he's got to deal with a different type of pressure, which can be difficult. And I think Sexton, is no doubt about it, was had this mental strength that the opposition trying to rattle him or get at him physically, he was able to cope with that. So that's the challenge. I think it's the pressure that France are going to put on him and defensively as well. I think they're going to try and run the Mofana, the 12 who plays instead of Jonathan Dante down his channel a lot, and his back row have got to try and help him. And I think if he gets a good start in the game, there's no doubt he has that talent and quality to do well. But no matter what way you look at it, Sexton is a loss. I think maybe it's a good thing it's happening now. This is a big game for Joey Carbery. He's not a young fella anymore, and
on that, Quinny, on that exact point, then what? Like, he hasn't been selected over Sexton, and you're alluding to the fact that it's probably good World Cup preparation in a lot of ways. What, if anything, does Carbery bring to the party that Sexton doesn't?
Well, his running game is, himself athletically, he's very, very quick and he's evasive and he's a different type of stepper than Johnny Sexton. So I think if he gets quality ball and off multi-phase, he can be very effective running himself because he's very quick and he has that sidestep and that wavy run. He's got to nail his kicks from hand and I think that just the pressure, dealing with the pressure. And we know how good Sexton is at that. Sexton's ability to take the ball to the line. So that's a confidence thing. And that's, I suppose a real belief in what Sexton does and experience as well. So, Joey Carbery he's been in around the group for years. He's been in this international setup. I just think he has a little bit of X factor. We keep talking about it, but we don't see it consistently enough. We've seen glimpses of it. So what does he bring instead of Johnny Sexton? Well, I think if Ireland are to go all out attack, his running game probably can be a real positive for Ireland. But most of the time, he's just going to be linking up with players. I think we've seen in recent games, the 12 being that first receiver with your fly half out the back. That may give Carbery a little bit more space, but it's down to good decision making as well. So Sexton is still a better player. I think in the overall package, Carbery has that decisive indecisive, I should say, ability to do something special. So hopefully we can see something like that. See, even if it's one big moment that he makes a break or can stretch his legs and put someone away. I think that would be probably the point of difference. But it's all the nitty gritty stuff, the basics, dealing with the pressure, leadership, all that stuff that Sexton is a loss.
We could equally be talking in as much detail about Jack Carty obviously on Monday morning because he's potentially coming in for 15 or 20 minutes, and he's been brilliant for Connacht this season, Quinny. Like, it's a lot of people making the case we were discussing earlier on. Was there an argument for him over Carbery here, or what are you thinking if it does come to it, 15-20 minutes to go, game in the melting pot and Carty is in the mix?
Yeah, there was an argument because of the way he's played this season, the amount of games he has played. Joey Carbery has been out for a number of weeks, a long period of time. So, of course, there was an argument. We will see Jack Carty probably at some stage. I'd be a lot more confident with Jack Carty nowadays, particularly with what's happened to him after the World Cup and the way his confidence dipped and he struggled probably for form and Connacht as well. So, I think we've seen but both of these guys bring a great excitement to the game, and if you give them time and space. The problem, Adrian, with international rugby is you don't get that time and space. It's always been the point of difference over the years when I played and people said, what's the difference? You've less time, you've more quality players on the field, putting pressure on you, being really aggressive, very little weaknesses in the opposition at the top level. And that's the thing, is making good decisions under pressure. And both of them, if Jack Carty comes on, it's about what kind of confidence Andy Farrell, Mike Cass, Paul O'Connell, Simon Easterby defensively have instilled in this team. And look, the signs are good that they're in a good place and that they believe they can go to Paris. And if they impose their game, hopefully it will be, a situation where first and foremost Joey Carbery can play well, kick his penalties, do the basics well. I think the one area he's got to get right is defensively, to be strong. Sexton doesn't soak tackles if somebody runs at them. He either stops them on the game line or wraps them in a way that he can lift people back over the game line. So he's very, very strong there. So I think Joey Carbery has to get the basics right first. And overall, I think the team is in a good place. And part of me really thinks that, if they get get themselves into the game and settle, that they're very capable of putting France under pressure.
And this would have been, were it not for Sexton's injury, the first time that Andy Farrell would have named an unchanged team during his tenure. So he is stumbling upon, or he's not stumbling, he's arrived at what he decides is his starting 15 at this point. Is that a good thing, Alan? Because it does seem that the Carbery and that conversation has been, positioned in a sense of this will be good for Ireland in the long run. If we look at the other 14 positions, is it good for Ireland in the long run, the sense of a lot of lads having their place at the top of the pile when it comes to their own jersey?
I suppose there's for and against. If you have a very settled team, it can give you cohesion on. We're 18 months away or out from a World Cup. It's probably, there's a lot of talk the last time about peaking too early. No matter what happens at this the next World Cup, it's probably more difficult to get past that quarter-final stage with the possibility of obviously having Scotland in the group and having to beat them. Finishing first or second, you're only going to get New Zealand or France most probably. So it's still going to be very difficult. There's still a lot of players. I think Andy Farrell he's capped a lot of players since he's taken over, which there's a fair bit of a transition has taken place. I think there is some players still who will have a say before the World Cup. Robert Balakoon, Mike Lowry, James Hume, Gavin Coombs could come into the mix. Probably need more second rows to put their hands up and really challenge the kind of top three that are there, which are Ty Byrne, James Ryan and Ian Henderson. But I think it is for and against. I think, obviously you can just play and do what's in front of you. And there's been a lot of change. Last summer, there was a lot of players capped in Japan and USA. New Zealand's going to be a very difficult challenge for them in the summer. But, you're getting a lot of players. Look, Mac Hansen has come into the team. More players kind of putting their hands up and one or two areas. The area we're talking about, is the 10 position. He'd love to be heading to the World Cup with 2 or 3 people vying for that number 10 jersey and putting more pressure on Johnny Sexton. And there's going to be change there, whether it's the end of this season or whether he goes to the World Cup. But that's one of the areas where you need to get more depth. So I think it's great to have a settled team. There's a lot of change to this team. The back row are completely different. So I think there's a lot of positives in that as well.
We were having a conversation yesterday about how that back row managed to target Antoine Dupont over the course of tomorrow afternoon. Is there almost a semi-man marking job that you can do, or a man targeting job that you can do coming off the line quickly to target Dupont if you are, say, a Josh van der Fleer, for example?
I think you've got to be careful. I think the best way to target Antoine Dupont is to not give him any opportunities around the breakdown, and that defensive effort applies to everybody. If he sees a little gap, he'll try and snipe through it, and if he gets in behind you, can be so dangerous and quick, and the lines he runs are exceptional. In a sense, I'm not really sure how you track a guy who can pop up anywhere because of his footballing ability. If anyone if any player makes a break for Toulouse or France, we've seen that in the last couple of years, he seems to just track that line on the inside. So that's probably an area where I would think of whether it's Gibson Park that kind of follows him or tracks him on the inside, or, you know, if he gets in behind and they get their hands through, that somebody is there to make that tackle. But of course, yeah, I think at the breakdown, you want to make it really difficult for him that he doesn't get really quick ball all the time. And Ireland has shown us an ability to choke tackle and put a lot of pressure on the opposition breakdown. So first and foremost, I think you just want to make it uneasy for him, the type of ball he's getting. Quick free kicks, stuff like that, you've got to have someone back 10 yards. And I'm sure that they've worked on that somebody is back there really quickly, or somebody who's standing there shoots forward to make that tackle if he taps and goes. So obviously it's down to, you know, trying not to give him quick quality ball and make it easy for him.
Do you expect Ireland to tweak anything in terms of their level of adventure tomorrow, just given the quality of opposition and given the fact that it is away from home?
Yeah, I would expect them to obviously have looked at France and see, you know, where there's gaps or weaknesses. We saw from the crossfield kick last week from Italy for the try they scored that, you know, they were a little bit narrow. Villiers isn't the biggest winger in the world. Can they target him there? I think defensively they come so hard off the line. For me, there's a little bit of space. Again, Italy put one or two little chip kicks in behind them when they were coming so hard, and there was a bit of space there. So they'll have looked at things like that and see where there's space on the field. You might only exploit these things once in a game on. You might try it, and, you know, France might have that covered this week. I would expect them to show us something different from possibly strike plays. If they get off line outs, whether they go midfield, come back to blind side, show us something a little bit different. Obviously, Joe Schmidt's teams were renowned for coming up with, you know, some sort of a strike play off a scrum or a line out that scored tries in big games from over the years. So I think we might see something. Whether it comes to fruition and works perfectly, who knows? But for me, what you've got to do against France is try and get to multi-phase and hope that, even though Sean Edwards has done a fantastic job with them around the defensive side of their game and their work rate, you've got to try and build multi-phase and hope that, you know, if you can force a penalty or if you can get in behind them, that they get a bit disjointed.
Just a wider question, Quinny, on Simon Zebo. I don't know if you saw that. He was talking to a French rugby podcast during the week, and he was talking about the atmosphere in the Ireland camp. And obviously, look, he has beef, obviously, with the previous management. But that notwithstanding, he's been involved in camps under Andy Farrell and that management team. He has mates who are in there, so he knows what's going on. And he talks about the atmosphere that's in there and how good it is. And look, he does make comparison with the previous regimes, but it looks like everybody's happy, everybody's on the same sheet, it's winning rugby. How much, I mean, look, a lot of it depends obviously on what happens this weekend, but how much of a lid do we need to keep on how things are going? Or what's your reading on, I'm sure you're in contact with people in and about it as well, what's your reading on a management team, and Andy Farrell particularly, who not that long ago we were talking about, you know, how much road has this guy got, and very much has turned the corner with it?
Yeah, there was pressure, huge pressure on them last year, and around the way they were playing and the type of rugby that we were seeing, and results as well. Yeah, I think it's hugely important, and I don't think anybody's getting too excited. I had this feeling of what happened in 2018 with the Grand Slam, and it's experiences, isn't it? It's the same as when you're a player and you go to certain places, whether you're with Ireland or whether I was with Munster, you learn from experiences, and sometimes it can only be just becoming a little bit complacent in your performance and certain things that are happening in the group. But one thing that is a real common denominator throughout sport at all levels, and I'm a big believer in this, is if the players feel good and they're happy and confident in what they're trying to do, it's a much better place than to be indecisive and lacking confidence and nervous and worrying about what could happen. I think mentally to have them in a good place at the moment, and it comes down to the management. I think, you know, Paul O'Connell probably would have brought a fair bit of composure, even though he can be incredibly intense, Paul, in what he's trying to, as a player and as a coach, which is a great thing. He can make people feel really strong and belief in themselves. But look, I think what Zebo is saying, and I understand it, that, you know, they're full of confidence and they're full of belief and they're happy. Does it give them a guarantee of results in sport? No, it doesn't. Will we be talking on Monday about, you know, them going backwards? Or sometimes you have to take steps backwards, and that's just the way it goes. But for me, they've just got to stick to their own game and try and, you know, impose what they've been doing in November and last week on the opposition. And I think invariably those passes and those moments and those positive things that happen in a game happen easily when you're in a good place. And that makes sense.
It does. What's your call on it?
I was probably... It's a very difficult one. It's not me sitting on the fence. One side of me thinks, yeah, I just really think that they have a great chance, but having a great chance doesn't guarantee the result. I think France are a very powerful side, and that's the one area, their physicality and their power, and they're gone with the 6-2 split on the bench. There's a real belief in French rugby that this team can go on and not just win a Six Nations, but win a World Cup. Galtier has done a brilliant job, as Edwards and Ibanez. So it's a huge task. If Ireland lose the game, is it disaster? No, because if we win the game, will we be getting too far ahead of ourselves?
We will, yeah.
Yeah, probably. Look, I think it's going to be very, very tight. I think with Sexton coming out of the team yesterday, it concerned me. But another part of me then thinks we're going to have to live without Johnny Sexton, whether it be next year, after the World Cup or whatever. So Joey Carbery has to try and step up, and Jack Carty, and see if they can, you know, will it take a little bit of sting out of the French, because they love playing against Johnny Sexton. So I don't know. You're splitting the hairs. I think France are probably the team that are going to edge it. But I really hope that Ireland can trouble them, and if they're in the game, I think if Ireland are in the game late on, I think they'll win it, because they're incredibly fit, tenacious, resilient, and their work rate is through the roof. And if they're in the game late on, I think Ireland will win it. But I'm probably leaning towards France. I'm changing my tactic again. I'll change it by tomorrow again.
Good time for us to get rid of you. Good man. Thanks, Quiddy.
Cheers, lads.
Fair
Thanks.
play. Alan Quinlan looking ahead to the game. 4:45 tomorrow, by the way, that match. It'll all kick off. Scotland-Wales. Wales-Scotland at 2:15 tomorrow. The wooden spoon contenders, really, aren't they? Your friends? Wales.
Italy.
They are. I mean,
there's those things, wooden spoon contender. Italy are wooden spoon winners.
Wooden spoon contenders. Who was it that made the point this morning? Ronan O'Gara, I think, in the Examiner, was talking about the unforgivable nature of that cough up by Tadhg Beirne late on, where Wales, we should have nilled them. Like, they were brutal, they were bad. Now, you do expect them to get a little bit better. I don't know if it's going to happen for them this weekend against a decent Scotland team, but I think they are live wooden spoon contenders on the basis of that form.
Like, the only thing you need to ask yourself is, will they beat Italy? And they will beat Italy.
Not on the basis of last weekend. They won't. I mean, you assume they'll improve.
Yeah.
If that Wales team that played Ireland last weekend play Italy,
they're at home to Italy on the last day of the championship. They'll have players back. They'll have a few of their lines back. They'll be better than they were last week. I'd be astonished if Wales win the wooden spoon.
The organisers have set that up as a wooden spoon off. I presume there are teams that have gone from winning the championship, I mean, albeit the worst team to have ever won the championship, to there's definitely no team that's gone from that to wooden spoon, because it's generally tended to be Italy, obviously, in the modern era.
I'd say in the Five Nations there possibly was.
In the Five Nations there could have been, because that used to change wildly from.
Yeah, I almost said there certainly was. So yeah, no, not for me.
Not for me, pal. Righto, it's 2 minutes to 9. You're watching OTB AM. We're brought to you by Gillette. Good mornings start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Live crappy quiz coming your way in a few minutes' time. But before all of that, our next two guests, former rugby players Damian Browne and Fergus Farrell, attempting a remarkable feat this year. They're planning to row across the Atlantic. It's 5,000 kilometres. It's New York to Galway. It's unsupported, and we're going to be speaking to them in just a couple of moments' time. Before that, take a look at this clip from Lorcan Hines' short film called The Row.
The accident left me completely paralysed from the waist down. The surgeon put his hands on my shoulder and said I may never walk again. This is my new reality.
If you don't have doubts, confusion, chaos, it's not a challenge. There has to be striving, drive, but there also has to be doubts. That's challenge.
I knew in my gut I'd walk again. I had to keep pushing myself, inching forward.
I saw someone who wouldn't give up on himself. That's what builds strength. That's what builds character.
Step by step, you'll be amazed where that can bring you.
2 years after he was told he would never walk again, Fergus Farrell has walked across Ireland for charity.
Now I understand why Damo does what he does.
There's a drive within me that I want to take on those challenges. Challenge forges you. When you embrace the storm and do something that scares you, you grow. We're rowing 3,000 nautical miles from New York to the west of Ireland, unsupported.
New York to Galway. The challenge of a lifetime.
Damian, Fergus, good morning to you. Come on in, Galway. Have we got you, lads?
How you doing?
We have indeed, yes.
How's the form? I've just been looking at a clip from your video there, The Row, and it's bloody impressive, and what you're doing is bloody impressive. Damian, kick us off. You're well used to this madness.
What number room you have? Whoa! What number room
Fergus is in Houston Station there, or Galway main station by the sounds of things. We're struggling to get out of the starting blocks here, but we'll get motoring. We're all good. Damian, kick us off. This is your latest challenge. Is it 3 months out?
Yeah, we're just kind of coming up to 3 months exactly. Yeah, hopefully we don't exactly have a start date because it's all weather dependent, and getting away from New York is quite tricky, you know. So it'll literally be like a couple of days beforehand we'll know, but we'll be ready to go by kind of mid-May. May 18th is the day we have in our head, and we'll be ready to kick off. And whenever we get that window, we're going to put the head down and do our best to get away from that landmass as quickly as possible and out into deep water.
How long does it take you to row 5,000 kilometres across wild seas?
How long is a piece of string? It depends again, it's all weather dependent, right? Like, so the fastest it's ever been done is 55 days, 13 hours.
I think Fergus is going to have to shift venue there by the looks of things, so we might let him away, and I think, Damian, we'll break it there for a second and we'll get you back up in the line, because we've both technically coming through the same system, so we'll have to hit restart on that, and we'll do that in just a moment and get the two lads backing up. What they're doing is unbelievable, and I'm sure people will be very much aware of Damian's background in challenges at this point. It's been literally the journey he's been on has been really very impressive, and I was listening again last night to the podcast that he recorded at base camp in Everest, where he had to hit stop on his plan to climb Mount Everest. He had picked up COVID. It was last year, and it was a podcast that I'd highly recommend you checking out. But he's obviously addicted to this stuff. On it's not, he's not his first rodeo.
No, like, it's just a complete different mindset, isn't it? The people who manage to go and not for you or I, Owen, I think is what you're saying. This is definitely not for me.
And it's the thing is, like, we all got those sort of like mad mates who are like, oh, one of my mates on to me last year said that he was planning on cycling around Ireland. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I think what happens is, in that context, you kind of commit to it, don't you? You're like, before you know it, you're like all signed up. You're ready for a road. What is it we're doing again? Oh, 5,000 kilometres across the Atlantic. Oh, well, that might be a bit of a challenge. And as Damian has spoken about as well, it's obviously bringing it into his hometown, which must be part of the appeal as well. So we will come back to that in a few moments' time. In the meantime, there's lots going on across the back pages. We have Damian on the line. Great. Damian, how are you getting on? You're back with us.
I'm back, lads. Sorry about that.
All good. All is good. All is good. Come here. Talk to us a little bit about the challenge that's ahead. That's one that's going to do wonders for us on YouTube. You can be sure of it. Tommy Bowe and his 10 siblings won't have a patch on that one. Talk to us about. I just mentioned the word addicted there about your career in extreme challenges. Do you see it in those terms, or how do you view your thirst for this sort of stuff?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, there's definitely a like addictive. You could describe it that way. You could use other words like a calling or a pull or like a deep drive to explore like the kind of inner corners of myself through physical and mental challenge and endurance. But yeah, this one is right up there. Like, this one is kind of one I see as a kind of legacy piece for me, in terms of, I get to actually do something or connect something with where not only my country where I was born and bred, but also the town I grew up on, right? So we get to row from New York across the North Atlantic Ocean into the centre, basically into Galway docks, sometime in kind of July, possibly August, depending on what sort of weather we get. The goal is to break the world record, which is 55 days, 13 hours. But that's just a goal. Like, if Mother Nature decides that, she's going to hit us with storm after storm after storm, there's not much we can do about that, But for now, anyway, we have every intention, and everything we do is to go for that record. And if given the chance, hopefully give it a good shot.
You've had your boat built and you're in possession and you're out practicing in it, and what it's a bit of a mix of the old and the new, is that right?
Yeah, so it's we just got it on Monday, and we're over the moon with it. Basically, it was over the last 13 months. It's been crafted very slowly, but crafted in Devon in the UK by a guy called Justin Adkin from Sea Sabre, and he's a traditionalist in how he sets up his boats. So there's a couple of different ways you can set up the boat. Basically, what that means is how you position the cabins, and he positions the cabins as the original ocean rowers would have done it. That means that they're not really giving they're not making the most of the weather conditions. They're just there for basically a refuge during big weather. And I kind of align with his philosophy and his I suppose his the way he thinks and all that sort of stuff. So I'm all for it. It's called pure class, so it's doing it like basically like the traditionalists would have done it, and so it's not making the thing that is already very hard any easier. It's basically the hardest way you can do it. And then what we've done is something that's quite innovative. It's never been done in ocean rowing before. So as a pair, normally the two rowers would row in front and behind each other, but we've set the boat up so we can row side by side just with one oar each. And we feel that our physical and mental capacities are going to make the boat faster by rowing like that. So we, what often happens, and what I noticed on my last Atlantic crossing, was that the boat pitches so much, it's been pitched and tossed, right? That like when you have two oars, it's not impossible, sorry, but the percentage of times you get two oars in the water is really, really low, like for big, full, powerful strokes. Whereas if we just have one oar to concentrate on, we don't have to worry about that peripheral vision. We can just concentrate on placing the oar in the water. So that means hopefully we can get really powerful strokes. And if you're doing 1.5 million strokes, that adds up, right? Every stroke counts, and particularly when you're going for a world record. So that's the theory. So we'll see how that plays out.
Well, and because one of the things I was interested in is like what happens if, and I wasn't aware that you were going with that method of it. What happens if one of you gets injured or one of you gets sick, or is it all in or all out?
No, we also have the option, and this is kind of the innovative piece. We can and will row as individuals with two oars, but we have these like kind of we have 3 positions on the boat. Right. So that as an individual, you have the one position in the middle of the deck, and then if we row together, we have 2 more seats either side of that, and then we just have these kind of swinging arms where the oars extend further out into like an outrigger on a Olympic rowing boat or whatever. So so it's all so we'll mix that up. When we have really good and bad conditions, we'll probably both get on the oars and try and make the most or try and limit the damage. And then when we kind of get into a bit of a groove, we'll probably row individually for long periods of, like, I'm talking days in a row.
Right. 55 days at sea is an incredibly long period of time. What do you do when you're out there? Like, Are you talking? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you listening to the sea? What's going on?
Yeah, very simple life, right? Row, eat, sleep, and look after yourself. That was. I obviously did one of these before, and I was alone, so I didn't really have anyone to talk to. And I made a big mistake in terms of not bringing any headphones. There was a speaker system on the boat, and I'd never actually I bought a load of audio books and podcasts, or downloaded them at least before I was to leave. And then like day 4, I was like, okay, now I'll crack into the first audio book here, and turned it on, and my heart dropped straight away when I realized I couldn't hear the narration over the wind. And having no headphones, that was like 10 audiobooks were just like basically completely useless to me. So myself and Gussie, obviously we'll learn from that, and we'll have, I suppose, we can talk to each other. I don't know how we're going to fill 55 days or more worth of chat, but I'm sure there'll be some pretty shallow chat, and maybe even some profound stuff coming up.
And I know, having listened to your podcast again last night, from your ultimately, the word is totally wrong, but it's the only word that comes to my mind, failed attempt at Everest, and how much that the trauma that was involved, I suppose, with that. And you spoke at that point about the importance of the support network and the quality of the support network. Are you doing this unsupported?
Yeah, we are completely unsupported. Yeah, so when we leave New York, apart from maybe we have a documentary crew following us, and maybe a few people who want to kind of see us off, they'll apart from those people, and maybe for a day they might follow us, but after that we're totally unsupported. We have everything we need to survive on the boat, from start to finish. So we have all our dehydrated food, snacks, and we have a desalinator as well to what they call make water, or suck up the seawater and run it through a load of filters to give us drinkable water. And that's us. No support from start to finish. So it's a very kind of it's a very free way, I find, to find yourself in these places. Very free way to do expeditions.
Yeah. What's the plan if something goes wrong? Hopefully not, obviously, but I'm sure you have plans in place for what's the emergency red button plan?
Well, by maritime law, like, so say the worst case scenario, and we have to be rescued for some reason. By maritime law, as long as if you SOS, the nearest vessel has to come by and aid you in a rescue. Yeah, so in terms of that, like, that's a huge safety net, and we'll have all sorts of beacons. So we'll have one on literally wear one called a person locating beacon, a PLB, and then we'll have another thing called an EPIRB, and then we have SOS on our sat phones. So you're pretty kind of connected in terms of to the system that can save you if the worst case scenario was to come about.
And obviously I'm asking a lot of questions here about worst case scenario, and I'm hoping that and we're all be supporting you along the way, that none of that comes into play. Did I read that you're going to be attached to the boat, in the sense that it'll be obviously extremely choppy out there, and that's your best method of hanging on to it? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, no, we that is the number one safety protocol, and that's something you just do not mess with. Yeah. Like, so the split second you exit that cabin onto deck, we'll either be wearing a climbing harness, or we'll have our life jacket on, which also has a harness around it, and you'll have a line then coming out of either of those harnesses, and then you clip that in straight away to another line, I think called a jack stay on the boat. So that's your one point of contact. Whatever happens, you have one point of contact with the boat, and that's I can't over exaggerate how important that is, because as long as you're in contact with the boat, you're safe. Like, but if the second you're not, you're incredibly unsafe. And basically, if you are detached from the boat, unless it's a really, really calm day, I mean, that's it. It's game over. Because you can't just turn these boats around and row back. Right. Like, the current is taking you one way, and you're just swept in that current away. So So that's something we drill. Even if it's sunny and calm, you still clip in all the time.
How does the feeling of diving into the deep end here compare with, say, going up Everest? Is it a completely different sense of trepidation?
Well, because I've done it before, I remember when I was lining up to push away from the dock and out into what was then the unknown. Like, I was so discombobulated is the best way I can put it. Disorganized mentally. I was there was so many things going through my head. I really couldn't get any kind of presence, any kind of concentration. But this time I don't really have that. I have a pretty clear plan what we're going to do on the first 36, 48 hours, to get away from, like I said, that kind of North American landmass, which is really difficult and challenging. And then it's just a case of, it's just this incredibly relentless grind, just constantly be challenged by the ocean in many different ways, particularly psychologically, and it's just about being able to control, have some sort of organization and control of what your mind does when you get into weak mental states.
What, you have techniques, have you?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, basically, I've kind of developed my own stuff through through my journey as an adult in professional rugby and now in extreme adventures. And it's all about, staying present. So basically there's the two kind of steps to that. When you are future focused or outcome orientated or distracted in some way, so first thing that's going to flag that for you is your self-awareness. So if you're not aware, you can't change it. So you have to become aware of your state that you're in. And then secondly, it's just about redirecting your mind into a neutral or a positive state. And you do that through concentrating on something that's within your control. And I have a method called the 4 controllables. So in physical endeavors, in physical pursuits, there's 4 things that you can always control, no matter how stressed you are, no matter how negative, no matter how doubtful, no matter how distracted or dark or chaotic you are mentally. These things are always within your control if you can bring your concentration to the act of doing them, and they are your body position and technique. So in this case, rowing, and that body position through the rowing stroke, your effort, so how much effort you're putting through a part of your body. So just bring your concentration
attention to your grip or to your upper back or to your quad, and concentrating on literally on the effort that you are producing or generating in that place, in that body area. Your breath, that is always within your control, and if you can bring your concentration to it, you become present. And breath also has a strong link to the parasympathetic nervous system, so it also calms you in those states. And then your self-talk, again, always within your control. And when you are concentrated on what you're saying to yourself, and on the act of what you're saying to yourself, you redirect your mind to the present, and you cannot be stressed, you cannot be anxious, you cannot be doubtful. When you are present, you can just be present.
Yeah, it's an awesome challenge, and we've only got a bit of a flavour of it there this morning. We'll get Fergus's story again, and we will definitely be checking in. You have a long time before you set off. I know that a big part of it for you is the emotional aspect of coming back into Galway as well, so we've a huge amount more that we'll touch on again. But for the minute, Damian, best of luck with the prep. Catch up with you down the track.
Fair play, lads. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a million, Damian Browne. And you can keep on top of all the very latest there. ProjectEmpower.ie if you want to head along and check out how you can get involved with the two lads. And I said we'll get more of that story down the track. You're watching OTB AM. It is 9:20. We're brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio today. 10:30 is the football kickoff with Sky. That will be coming your way with Ger and crew. 10:30 this morning. 1 o'clock, Ronnie Delaney, OTB Gold. Friday Night Racing from 3 o'clock. Who's on Friday Night Racing, Ger?
You're going to have to tune in to find out.
We'll tune in to find out. 3 o'clock today. Classic Game Club at 4. Dublin against Kerry in Thurles from 2001. Catherine Switzer, OTB Gold from 6, and then Off the Ball on your radio from 7 this evening. Up next on OTB AM, live crappy quiz.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Off the Ball's the best, number one.
It's the GOAT of sports apps.
Talk about the greatest of all time. Nathan, you know Big Joe. Big Joe's the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT. We know it.
So
every single time. Yes.
It's tough going. It's tough for my ego. I'm going to say I'm the Djokovic of this scenario.
I love it.
This is OTB Sports Radio. Download the OTB Sports app now.
With prices from only €289 for fully comprehensive car insurance, everyone's making the jump to getsetgo.ie. New business policies only. Prices subject to minimum premiums. T's and C's apply. MCL Insurance Services Limited Trading is getsetgo.ie is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me.
September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit 3 of Team Off the Ball up against each other in a no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant will not look you in the eye unless you refer to him as Managing Director of OTB Sports. This week, however, he will respond to shouts of Managing Director of the Principality of Wales. Give it up for the MD of Wales, Ger Gilroy.
Hi everybody, I didn't realise I was on camera there. I apologise for my obscene gesticulations in the general direction on.
I didn't realise that was picked up. That's what happens here. This is the behind the scenes look.
Can I, sorry, just interrupt very briefly. Downtown Damian Browne was on just beforehand, a very impressive character, and he used the phrase weak mental state, and then he looked at both of you. I was like, that could be the sub name for this entire show.
Well, as he was going through
weak
it,
mental
like,
state.
Control your breath. I was like, clear your mind. Easy done.
There's not much there in the first place.
Control your breath, don't let your breath control you is the key. Our next contestant is back on the quiz after a long hiatus due to having his priorities in the right order. He spent his month of January finally polishing off a 5-year-old Argentinian and a 26-year-old South African. His palate is enhanced, his knowledge of the wines of the world broadened. His wife also had a baby. Give it up for Adrian, who really is your daddy, Barry.
That was the one. Re-roll Damian's advice back in your mind there on. I don't know what happened there.
It's dangerous.
Can we delete that? Can we rewind and start again?
Absolutely not. That was...
What was he doing to the South Africans?
That was beautifully crafted and exactly delivered how it should have been. Our last contestant today was conspicuous by his absence in Dubai's Cove Beach and in Salt Bay's flagship restaurant. There was a football break, but this football man declined to go on the footballer's holiday, limbering up for a big summer in Marbella. It is Phil the Power Egan.
Yeah, lads.
What's Salt Bay all about, really? Like, gold-plated steaks. Have you seen them?
Yeah.
That can't be good for your insides.
I mean, I guess you just got to go and find out.
Welcome to 2018 there, Adrian.
Just saying. What's it all about, Jared? It's still a thing.
I mean, it's a cultural moment of Salt Bay, you would say, passed quite a while ago, but...
Is that your opening at the Comedy Store? Salt Bay. What's all about, guys? As ever, the format is a classic crappy quiz with a series of questions and a range of themes, and it's onto the slip and slide of trivia, which is the rapid fire round. You got
that gold in your intestines, and it comes out, and it's you're looking down the toilet, and it's golden. It's just one of Adrian's bits there.
That is. It's good. You can podcast the crappy quiz, as I said, on the OTB Sports app. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and I'm sure we've got loads of those coming already. And please send any questions you have via postcard to Crappy Quiz Quizmaster, Off the Ball Towers, Marconi House, Diggs Lane, Dublin 2. Round 1 is the boring questions round.
It's actually very warm, isn't it?
I regret this, please. Never multiple choice. Question 1 for you, Ger.
Oh, why first?
Who scored the France try in Paris in 2018 that looked like it was going to end Ireland's Grand Slam hopes before they even got started?
Stop the lights.
The big hairy winger. With the long flowing hair. Whose name I've completely forgotten.
Shame, isn't it?
Breathe, Ger, breathe. Go to your good stuff.
Gaston Hihon.
Gaston Hihon, is that your answer?
What's his name?
Hit the buzzer.
I have no idea.
No idea. Teddy Thomas.
I was completely wrong then.
Adrian.
Who is it? Oh, it was the try that was disallowed.
There was a try disallowed in that game as well, was there? That was like 4 years ago, I can't remember.
I thought that's who you were... Teddy Thomas, who you were describing.
It was...
He does have long wavy hair, just tied up in a bun that day, if I'm not mistaken. Adrian, question 1 for you. In what position did Ireland finish in the Six Nations table the year O'Driscoll's hat-trick in Paris? The year of O'Driscoll's hat-trick in Paris, I should say. Not getting my words out this morning.
Where did we finish in the table?
It's the weight of being a fashion icon. I notice you dress up for Adrian. With me, it's like whatever, but... You're rocking.
I would say this is dressing down.
You're rocking the weekend gear here.
Please.
No, this is dressing down.
It's a nice top, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks very much.
It's brand new. It's fancy.
It's very warm studio.
It's
is it sponsored?
It's not sponsored, but we can get sponsored if you want. Also open to any stickers on the laptop. I realise at the top here is good real estate. Send me your offers.
Third.
I will take them all. Correct. Well done. Adrian is off the mark.
Never multiple choice is what it says at the top, right?
Well, I mean,
so how many choices are there?
5 positions.
Come on now. You broke your own rules there. There's never multiple choice except it can be... First, it couldn't because we never.
You just should have got Teddy.
Can't be last because of the Italians.
That would have taken it out of it.
I mean, this is ridiculous. Is it second, third, or fourth? I don't know. Is that multiple choice? That sounds like multiple choice to me.
There's one person who might have got that wrong. Phil, who was Roy Keane's record signing in his managerial career according to Transfer Market? And will remain his record transfer fee for now, of course.
Okay, so it wasn't Ipswich anyway.
Phil's just toying with this because he knows this straight away.
I don't know. No, I'm trying to think of players that he brought in.
Kenny Cunningham.
Oh,
he's one. Could be Kenny.
No.
I know he signed one player, but I don't know if it was the record sign. So I'm just going to say Dwight York.
No.
Cameron Jones.
No.
Was it your man?
Not Cameron Jones.
Small fella.
No.
Wasn't Chopra, was it?
Craig Gordon.
Craig Gordon. All right.
9.74 million
Cameron
pounds.
was 8.
And he's still playing.
The thing is, it was looked on as a bad signing because he wasn't great, and then his form was okay, and it was like, oh, that'd break even. But actually, if everybody had stayed, it would have looked like good business, right? He wasn't a bad keeper.
Bad manager.
No, he's still playing.
Well, I suppose longevity helps, but...
Round 2, Adrian, the only person who scored a point in round 1. Round 2 is the mystery French voice round. The rules in this round are simple. I'm going to play the voice of a person we usually hear speaking in English, speaking in French. And all you got to do is tell me who it is. Ger, who is this?
Déjà, il n'y a même pas beaucoup d'Américains qui ont fait ça. Donc, je pense que j'adore le basket, donc c'est pour ça en fait que.
C'est pas très difficile, je crois, parce que.
Je pense qu'en France.
Il est vraiment fameux, ouais.
Who is it?
Titi Henry.
Correct.
I thought it was
Sure,
like
that's
not
smart.
going to be a French person.
Adrian, who is this?
Changer cette mentalité, de faire un match sérieux, d'oublier que nous avons.
C'est trop facile ça.
Come on.
Merde.
I can't hear it.
Mais non, c'est trop facile.
Okay, I have to hear it again.
Changer cette mentalité, de faire un match sérieux, d'oublier que nous avons une finale pour jouer dimanche.
Phil, you're next up. Who is this?
Il y a les autres équipes qui sont difficiles, s'affronter.
Phil, you know what that is.
What? Can you play that again?
Oh.
Il y a les autres équipes qui sont difficiles, s'affronter.
Surely, Phil.
No, because obviously I'm not in studio today, so the sound quality isn't great. That's what I'm blaming on.
Yeah, it's actually better when you're listening just in the earphones. You don't have to listen to the shit these two are talking.
Yeah, but I'm not. I don't have Beats on. These are like little crap headphones.
They look pretty good to me.
Beats overpriced nonsense, some might say. Some might say that actually they're just labelling them, but they're actually an inferior product. That's all.
However, if you would like to send in some free beats or beat
well,
stickers,
I could try them out for you.
Or give us an answer, Phil.
Okay, something to do with Stade Francais. So, just say Fabien Galtier.
No.
I think that was actually tricky because normally when he comes on and pretends about his inability to speak French to us, it doesn't sound like he's speaking French, but that sounded like a French person speaking
It also
French.
sounds like a much younger person.
Yeah, it was an after game.
It was Challenge Cup against Brive. It was Ronan O'Gara, Phil.
Like a long time ago.
2011, wasn't that the Challenge Cup
No,
year?
he was already thinking forward then at that point. At some point, I'm going to be working over here. I better show you. If anything, his mock French pronunciation since his sounded like he's been working backwards on his French accent.
Yeah, it does. I obviously
that's just a curry favour with us.
That's a compliment to his French that I didn't get it. I thought it was a French person.
He did sound younger.
So in third place on 0 points is Phil. In second place on 1 point is Ger. And in the lead on 2 points is Adrian. I never do that, but I said that the occasion deserved it.
Situation.
Round 3 is the Pass the Parcel of Doom round. Yes, it's time for another edition of the hottest new invention of 2021 carrying through to 2022. In this round, I'll give you a category that involves a list of names, and all you've got to do is give me a name that matches the list, and the Parcel of Doom passes on to the next contestant, who then also has to give me a name. We keep moving through the list until one of you give me an incorrect answer, at which point that person will be eliminated. The last person standing wins a point. Ger.
It's a very complicated way of saying this. We just keep going. Go on.
We just keep going. Ger.
We do not let this slip.
Name a franchise that has won a Super Bowl, and I'm going to need the franchise name as opposed to the city.
Okay.
Has won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The San Francisco 49ers.
Correct. Adrian.
The Dolphins.
The Dolphins are there, yeah. That's correct. Phil.
Patriots.
Patriots, yeah. Sure.
The Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah. Seahawks. Adrian.
The Chargers.
The Chargers have not won a Super Bowl. Adrian's out.
I mean, it was inevitable to happen, just not that early.
I mean, the Dolphins, the last time the Dolphins won it was 72.
That was the time I was
reach,
into them.
Yeah.
Maybe in Dan Marino.
The Bears.
The Bears is correct. Sure.
Dallas Cowboys.
Cowboys is correct. Phil.
Eagles.
Eagles is correct.
New York Giants.
Yeah. Phil.
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
The Steelers is correct, yeah.
The Kansas City Chiefs.
Chiefs. Phil.
The Rams.
Rams, yeah, sure.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Jets.
Jets, yeah. Good pace. Keep going.
Baltimore Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens is correct, yeah. Phil.
Broncos.
Broncos is correct. Sure.
So I'm going to say the Philadelphia Eagles.
Has already been said.
Yes. The Patriots mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said that.
Phil gets the point. Phil is back in the game. Adrian, you kick us off on this one. Name a
How many more do we have there?
You had the Colts, Washington, Packers, Raiders, Saints. Were the other ones.
That was good.
Adrian. Name a Winter Olympic sport. I'm going to need to name it a sport rather than the specific event, as defined both by Olympics.com and Wikipedia.
Oh no!
I don't know what the hell does that mean.
So
name a sport.
Can't just say.
So like I'm trying to think.
You can't just say skiing.
So I'm going to kick things off with ice skating.
Why are you on your computer typing away there?
I'm typing down some answers.
I will.
If I had a pen and paper, I might write them down. This is strategy.
He's got a computer.
So what? Ice skating.
For the first time.
I'll let you go again. I'll need to be a little bit more specific than that. Ice skating is too broad. There are different,
for God's sake, what do you mean it's too broad?
There are different types of ice skating in the Winter Olympic Games. Go more specific, please.
So if I say skeleton, is that what we're looking at?
What's your answer here?
But I don't know what the question is. I actually don't know what the question is.
You do. We all know what the question is. So you're obviously.
What's a sport at the Winter Olympics?
Yeah.
Ice skating is a sport at the Winter Olympics.
It's not. I'm going to eliminate.
No, I'm not eliminated. I have a list here as a long sharp. The luge.
Luge, correct. Let's go. It's not necessarily just an adventure, though. It's the only thing, because there are loads of different events within luge.
Well, let's see how smart now the two of you chumps are with these.
Phil, sorry,
question.
Okay, so if I was to say cross-country skiing,
that would absolutely be correct. Well done, Phil. Getting on with it.
Curling.
Thank you, Adrian. Back to you. Come on, make a big deal out of this.
Slalom.
Slalom is not there.
The downhill slalom.
It's part of a. The downhill slalom is an event within a sport.
So the first answer I gave was too broad, and now this is too specific.
Correct.
This doesn't make any sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Seriously, come on.
It makes perfect sense.
Come on.
He's correct.
That makes no sense.
Questions are the questions.
One is too broad and one is too narrow.
Phil.
Seriously.
The Super G.
This makes no. Wow.
The Super G is not one either.
It is.
Of course it is, Phil. Of course it is.
Super G is an event within an event.
Okay.
You're done.
Bobsleigh.
Bobsled would have been correct, absolutely. Jordan wins the point.
It wouldn't before you even said that. You have to accept, okay?
I hadn't heard before I said that. I needed to win, otherwise you would have got back in.
I'm happy for us to move on with life, but you have to accept that question was bullshit.
No, it wasn't. There are 15 different sports.
If you just accepted that was bullshit, we could all move on.
Let me list off the 15 sports at the Winter Games. Alpine skiing, biathlon, bobsleigh, cross-country skiing, curling, figure skating, freestyle skiing, ice hockey, luge, Nordic combined, short track speed skating,
luge what they call
skeleton, ski jumping, snowboarding, and speed skating. See, there are a number of different skatings there. Figure skating, speed skating, short track speed skating. Which of the skatings were you referring to in ice skating? Nobody knows.
I think we should have been let do any of them, to be honest.
Phil, can you name an artist that has performed as the main act or joint main act in the Super Bowl halftime show this century?
This century. Okay, I'm going to start with the very first one of the century, and Christina Aguilera.
This is a guy with knowledge if he's if he can tell you the exact year. That's correct.
No, I'm next.
It is Jar next, yeah.
You too,
yeah.
I'm trying to think of the old slip. Who was that?
Always bringing down the tone.
Yeah, for God's sake.
I'm going to say Coldplay did it, didn't they?
Yeah.
They weren't.
I need a bit more confidence in your next answer, that's all right, just rather than asking the question. Phil?
The Weekend.
It was actually Jar's turn there, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry.
That was mine, yeah.
Jar.
Timberlake and Janet Jackson.
Oh, he's knocked two out there. I'll have to accept.
The same year.
He said who has performed as the main act. It was
or co-main act. So you could have named one, and I would have accepted.
Because I had Janet Jackson on my list here.
I named them both because they were together.
Yep.
I mean,
that's fair game. Fair game. Adrian.
She had her career ruined by Justin Timberlake in the aftermath.
I had it written down here. I'd actually written Janie Jackson, but regardless,
unfortunately,
Christina Aguilera.
That's already been said. You're out.
Has that been said?
Phil.
Beyonce.
Beyonce is correct. Jar.
Black Eyed Peas.
Black Eyed Peas is correct. Phil.
Katy Perry.
Katy Perry, bang on.
Madonna,
yeah.
Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
Pitbull.
No.
What are you talking about? Was he not with J-Lo last year?
No, that was J-Lo and Shakira.
No, Pitbull was in it.
Last year was The Weeknd.
Pitbull was he came on in Miami with J-Lo. I'm telling you, Pitbull's in it.
No, but he wasn't one of the co-main acts.
He was absolutely one of the co-main acts. I remember everybody going, who is Pitbull? Look, old man in the middle of
pre-game Super Bowl.
Who is this fella?
Super Bowl.
Pre-game. There you go. Thank you, Adrian. At long last, somebody stands up.
He's on his computer, by the way.
Well, I'm looking up the right answer.
Look at him on his computer.
I look. We've changed tack now from.
We've lowered him into proof.
That was the right answer to. He's on his computer.
Maybe it was the wrong answer, but I'm sure he.
I'll quickly run through all the ones you didn't say. There's loads of them. Aerosmith, Bruce Springsteen, Bruno Mars, Enrique Iglesias, Jessica Simpson, Kid Rock, Lady Gaga, Nelly, Maroon 5, No Doubt, NSYNC, P. Diddy, Paul McCartney, Phil Collins, Prince, Shania Twain, Shakira, The Rolling Stones, The Who, Tom Petty, Tony Braxton. That is a complete list. Round 4, we're tied at 2 apiece.
Maybe
is the Fun Free Magic number round.
Learn a thing or two about the half-time in the All-Ireland final and the shite that we get.
What do we get?
Who would you get though? I mean,
North,
it would run
South,
out
East
pretty
and West
quickly.
Gaelic games is far the best. That's the one I remember the most. I'm like, what? Here's the song we wrote especially for today. It sounds like it. It sounds like you wrote it in the jacks on the way in.
I mean, it is. I had no lies detected in that piece of lyrical writing. North, South, East and West, GAA really is the best.
I mean,
you cannot disagree with that.
It wasn't even their best work, you know.
You wouldn't catch Maroon 5 talking about American football being the best in all directions. Round 4.
We're lucky to be there.
Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. You can only accept the answer that's written on your paper. And I'm also going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of tests Joey Carbery has already started for Ireland at out half, plus the number of times France have won the Six Nations in the Six Nations era, plus the number of goals Egypt scored in the knockout stages of the Africa Cup of Nations this year, not including penalty shootouts, plus the number of times Kilcoo have won the All-Ireland Senior Club Football Championship. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads.
Can you repeat specifically the first question?
The number of tests Joey Carbery has started for Ireland at out half. The number of times France have won the Six Nations. The number of goals Egypt scored in the knockout stages of the Africa Cup of Nations this year, not including penalty shootouts. And the number of times Kilcoo have won the All-Ireland Senior Club Football Championship. You add them all up.
Knockouts.
Looks like Phil is ready to announce what he's got. Phil?
Adrian just Googled it there.
5. Ger?
8.
Sorry, we're talking about the total answer here.
Yeah.
When
did we ever not do the total answer at the end?
It's not 21 then.
It's not 21, no, but that's incorrect. But so what did you go? 8. Ger gets 2 points, Phil gets 1 point. The answer is 15.
15. Ooh.
8 is Joey Carbery's starts at out half, which
correct.
Is me going, what the hell are you lads on about?
Correct, so
Kilcoo have never won an All-Ireland.
Never won it. Yeah. France won the Six Nations 5 times.
I had them down for 7 times.
Okay.
And Egypt scored twice in the knockout stages.
I was actually not far off on any of those.
Yeah, well,
special price for that.
Well, there should be.
Price. Yeah, exactly.
There should be, because the rules have never been the same rules for the last 14 years.
I was way closer to all of those answers than either.
The question, the Joey Carbery one was.
You know what? If you want to go outside, there's a packet of minis and a bottle of shoot for you. You did very well there, Adrian.
That was a great.
Congratulations.
That's good. That's good parenting there, because that's what's going on. He's mid tantrum.
He is.
It's a hangover.
That
from the earlier
was earlier on. That was earlier on.
Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Mac Hansons from the Alan Hansons. It's no team in particular, ridiculously easy, rapid fire round. So the score you get in this round will be added to your score from the previous rounds. There'll be 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. We're going to start with Ger, who's in the lead, then on
What's
to
the
Phil.
scores, by the way?
You're 1 point behind Ger. It's 4-3-2, so it's all to play for. So the order is Ger, Phil, Adrian. Keep moving on. We keep asking you questions until you get one wrong.
You peak too soon.
Then we move on to the next person, and your incorrect answer also means a deduction of 1 point. Shout out to a friend of the show, Kieran Boyle from St. Augustine in Florida, who sent this week's rapid fire questions in based on the Super Bowl. Jared's just moved into odds-on favourite, raging hot. If he bottles it from here, it truly will be Atlanta Falcons stuff. It is currently 28-3.
Falcons, good.
Jared, you ready?
Yeah.
Your 40 seconds starts now. Which team has made the most Super Bowl appearances?
Pittsburgh Steelers.
No, the Patriots. Which of these teams has joined with the Patriots on 6 Super Bowls? The Steelers or the Niners, Phil?
Steelers.
Correct. True or false? The Cleveland Browns have never been in a Super Bowl.
False.
No, true. Name any performer at this year's Super Bowl halftime show, Adrian.
Beatles.
No. Which city has hosted the most Super Bowls, Miami or New York, Ger?
Miami.
Correct. Name the last team to have as home Super Bowl.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Correct. With which team did John Madden win Super Bowl 11 with? The Raiders or the Rams?
The Raiders.
Correct. We're out of those questions. Who's top of the Sigerson Cup Roll of Honour? UCC or UCD?
We're out of those questions. What does that mean?
We're out of,
it's relevant.
Correct. It doesn't matter. Ger wins.
Woo!
Ger wins with 7 points. Phil stays on 3. Adrian finishes on 1.
Sorry about it now.
The performers at the halftime show this year, in case you're interested, are Dr. Dre, Eminem, Kendrick, and Mary J. Blige.
I totally forgot about that. But,
that's going to be some halftime show.
Yeah. Jared, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I mean, I really should have romped home much easier than that. I made a meal of it. I shouldn't have let you get in the way you did. And really, Adrian, I realise that you spent the whole of January with children, but that behaviour today, you've just got to look back at yourself.
No, that was a shambles. We can all accept that.
Let's go and sit on the naughty step for a little while. Whatever it is. I mean, we're going to go around a big black plastic sack and shove all your stuff in and throw it out.
Come on. You've beat your one. Move on.
I'd agree. OTB AM has been brought to you by Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors. We'll be back next week with the crappy quiz. This weekend on OTB, it's an extended Saturday show from 1 to 7 with John Duggan. Football Saturday with Mark Lawrence and a build-up and coverage around France against Ireland. And we're in Croke Park as well for the club finals. Sunday from 1 to 7 as well. Enjoy the weekend. OTB AM back on Monday from 7:30. Super Bowl reaction, analysis of Ireland-France, the Premier League weekend and the hurling as well. This morning on OTB AM, we're leaving you with this. It'll bring you all the way to 10 o'clock. It's Colin Fennelly chatting to Nathan ahead of the AIB All-Ireland Club hurling final on Saturday afternoon between Ballygunner and Ballyhale Shamrocks. These chats are always great.
Well, it should be an absolute cracker at Croke Park this coming Saturday. The AIB GAA Hurling All-Ireland Senior Club Final sees Ballyhale Shamrocks of Kilkenny face off against Ballygunner of Waterford. It is live on TG Cahir. Tickets available now on gaa.ie/tickets. This year's AIB Club Championship celebrates #the toughest players in Gaelic games. Those who, despite adversity, don't quit and who persevere no matter how tough it gets, because tough can't quit. I'm delighted to be joined on the line by Ballyhale Shamrocks' Colin Fennelly. How are you keeping, Colin?
Yeah, I can barely hear you there now.
Can you hear us there now?
Yeah, that's better, yeah.
Good stuff. So we're what? Less than 48 hours away. This time, 48 hours, someone will be up the steps of the Hogan stand lifting the trophy, and generally it tends to be somebody from Ballyhale Shamrocks going for a 9th All-Ireland Senior crown. Have won every final since that first one back in 1979. No pressure, eh?
No pressure at all. It's certainly something to look forward to, and just the experience, I suppose, over the last few years. You get the taste of it. You want more, so you do.
Yeah, the confidence levels must be incredibly high. We've spoken to quite a few Ballyhale players over the last few months. We'd your goalkeeper Dean Mason on, who's never lost a game of senior club hurling with Ballyhale. That's the sort of momentum every sports team wants to get into.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It was kind of said there a few times, all right, that I think there's 3 or 4 guys there that came on that year that we started that run, I suppose, and they're having an amazing time of it, but unfortunately, it'll always come to an end at some stage, and it'll probably come as a fair shock to them when it does.
There's a lot of differences between club and county. One of them is, I dare say, if it was an All-Ireland county final that Kilkenny were in, Brian Cody wouldn't have you sitting here 48 hours before throw-in doing media interviews. It's a far more relaxed environment. I know you've stepped away from the inter-county side of it. Is that part of the love of this, that actually, 2 days before the game you can sort of still go about your life?
It is. It's a lot more relaxed, so it is. Just doing small things like this, and then probably the ease of it as well, just being able to do it online as well is probably another plus. But the pressure I spoke about it previously is just the pressure. It's not like the county put it on you. It just comes naturally when you're in there, no matter what happens. So just playing with the club, it's just automatically more enjoyable. So it is.
So compare the two then. The week of a final with Kilkenny. What would you have been like to be around?
Oh, it's been a while. It's been a while since I suppose. 2019 we were in it.
It's not that long.
It didn't end so well for us, so it didn't. But the nerves coming up to an All-Ireland final with Kilkenny, it's just massive. It's more because the whole county are talking about it. Well, the whole country, I suppose, is talking about it, where I suppose the club probably wouldn't get as much vibe from everyone, so you wouldn't. So it's a lot quieter going around, so it is, and it's certainly a lot nicer, so it is. Every place you go, they won't be talking about it, although at the moment it does feel like it every phone call you're on. But I think that was more because of the semi-final and just, I suppose, what happened in the last few minutes. Everybody was more talking about that, I think, more than anything.
Would you have felt a pressure to almost act a certain way the week of an All-Ireland final, not to be spotted out having a coffee with the lads, that the eyes of the county are on you, and you almost felt that? Did you have to almost lock yourself away for the week?
You would. You'd always keep your head down, so you would. You wouldn't mind people thinking that that lad has no interest in playing an All-Ireland final at the weekend, but like, it just wouldn't be the case. Like, you just kind of want to get on and just do what you normally do. Coming up to a match and look for a club final, that's certainly the case. Like, you know, you're just working during the week, you go to your training sessions and everything else, and you know, you meet the lads out tonight, and it's probably the last you'll see them out till Saturday morning, but just relax then tomorrow evening, and the nerves certainly will kick in tomorrow night, I suppose, when you realise it's just one more sleep, and you know, it's game on then from Saturday morning onwards.
What do you do when those nerves kick in tomorrow night? Do you have a process you go through? Do you switch on Netflix? What's the way of actually making sure that they don't become too much the night before a game? You do get a good night's sleep?
You do. You just go about your night as normal. So you do. The nerves are there, so they are. But I think it's kind of a thing where you accept the nerves, you know, because you just can't get rid of them. That's probably the thing that you just literally have to accept them. You kind of invite them, so you do. The fact that you're getting nervous, it just shows that there's something big happening, there's something major. You're doing something right to be in this position, to be so nervous. And you know, it's incredible to think back. You know, where I suppose the club war probably 2016, things weren't going too well, and here we are now a few years later, and you know, going for 3 in a row, and the club's after winning 4 county finals in a row. It's just it's an amazing place to be, but you know, nothing comes easy, and certainly Ballygunner won't be easy on Saturday. That's one thing we can count on.
I remember asking Tommy Welsh about his pre-All-Ireland final night routine, and he said himself and the brother have a pot of tea and about 20 slices of toast, which I'm not sure is advisable, but it worked for him. It worked for him.
It works for them because they're used to it. Pádraig absolutely loves toast as well. It is absolutely madness. Because I know they lived with Joey Holding there for a while as well, and Joey just couldn't get over. He nearly had to hide the Brennan's bread during the year because you know, if you had too much toast, Pádraig tends to put on a few more pounds than what he should be putting on.
Yeah, like you say, you know, where you look where you were in 2016. 2015, Ballyhale were the All-Ireland champions. So again, we're talking about everything sort of in a different context with Ballyhale to every other club around the country because of the success you've had. But like, you know, we've been down there recently, you know, met a lot of the Fennellys and the history of the place and how involved your family have been in it. You know, All-Ireland titles 81, 84, 90. You're growing up around that. You're growing up at a young age with an expectation that, you know, we're not like other clubs. We're not like other places. Did you think that when you were a kid growing up?
You wouldn't think about it. You know, if you ask the question of like, where does it all come from? And I suppose it's those guys that set it up. It's those guys that won the first county final, the first All-Ireland. They probably just set a tradition of just pure honesty there. And, you know, that has just come right through all the teams. You know, and I can even see it with the likes of Adrian Mullen and Darren, Owen Cody, Dara Cork. Like, when them guys go out in the field, they're just out there to work. They're not looking to be the hero. They're not looking to be the main man. They're out there to work. And I suppose if you was getting on older, that's exactly what we need. They aren't there for a handy hand pass. You know, the days of TJ winning every single ball and lads running off and to get a handy hand pass, it's gone. You know, these guys are stepping up, so they are. And that's probably the difference that we've probably had over the years, that guys just really step up to work for each other and just work as a team. And that has come right through from when Ballyhale started 50 years ago.
How different then, when you talk about being one of the more senior players on the team now, how different is it for you going into a dressing room where there are young lads like Dean Mason who are 20-21 who've never lost a game? Do you feel a leadership role? Is that something you take time to think about? You're going around speaking to the younger players, sharing your experiences, or what's your role?
Yeah, I suppose we talk a lot to lads, so we would, and you know, we let's say even with Dean, like he lives actually just down the road from me, so he does, and you know, I go into games with him, so I do, and go to training with him, and they can have the Mullins down the road, and he just talk about everything that has been done, you know, and they don't even know things that we would have done or played or with Henry and that. And that's only a few years ago for me. But for them, you know, they were just kids in the stand looking on, so they were. And, you know, it's just amazing just the comparisons that you do between the teams and everything else. And, you know, the lads just gain confidence, I suppose, from us that, you know, it is doable. We can do it. And, you know, they've really kind of stepped up over the years, so they have.
You mentioned the excitement that was there after the semi-final and the manner of the semi-final win over St Thomas's. I was talking to Tommy Welch about it on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he said, like, that's Ballyhale, and he went through a string of matches over the last couple of years where you thought Ballyhale were dead, but they weren't, and that somebody always stepped up. And, well, quite often it's yourself or TJ, and you combined in that moment, because while TJ got the glory, of course, it was you with a little bit of movement in front of the goalkeeper that really made it all happen. When TJ's standing over that, what's going through your head? Is there any doubt as to where it's going and where it's going to end up?
You know, you have a chance when TJ stands over. You know, Tommy made a very good point that, like, you know, that we probably do keep ourselves in the game, and that probably last minute or few minutes that, like, you know, if you're within 3 points of a team, it's one score away from keeping yourself in it. And you know, the St Ryan's game was a perfect example. And then the Thomas's game, you know, we're 2 points down. TJ stepping over a ball, he has done it plenty of times before. He was even against Bennettsbridge during the year. He top spin the ball straight in top corner. He probably out 35 yards in that match. And you know, when he stood over it, grand, there's probably 9 out of 10 times it's not going to go in. But let's say it would maybe deflect onto the ground, just about getting that flick in. But you know, just when you go straight into the net, you're like, geez, it couldn't come any easier than that. When you have a guy stepping over a ball like that.
So, did you know in advance you were going to step in front of the keeper? Or?
No, I didn't. It varies in these games. Like you know, about that Bennettsbridge game, there must have been another 5 bodies in front of me. Well, obviously TJ was out that bit further. You know, where he was probably in closer. He was kind of close to 21, so you couldn't have so many stepping out in front of him. And I suppose Joey Cuddy was just actually there in front of me beforehand. He moved out around. I walked across, and then I looked behind me. I said, look, I need to make myself as big as possible here. But I think I was getting a lot more credit for what I did than what I should. You know, as much as everything else, I was just a nuisance, and that's all I seem to be in full forward. But, like, you know, the real magicians are guys like TJ there and Adrian and Noam Cody who are making these things happen. So they are.
Yeah, I think you can put yourself in that category as well. And listen, it's a moment, I think, no matter what happens on Saturday, and who knows what drama we get, the people will be talking for a long, long time to come. Like, that ability to stay in the game, not to panic, like, that is the hallmark of champions. Every sport you look at, you never feel they're beaten. And quite often it's actually that they don't change. They don't go into panic mode. Is that your sense in Ballyhale, that when you are, if you try and keep it within 3 points going into injury time, that actually you just keep playing the same game, that you just keep doing it, and that you hope that this time it'll actually work? Or is there almost a special teams sense when you enter the final 5 minutes of actually we try something a bit different?
Yeah, it's not that we'd ever talk about that, because that's the position you probably don't ever hope to be in. But certainly you always know you have a chance. We're always kind of say, look, just stick to the base. Just keep tipping away, keep getting the ball over the bar, and wherever we are, and that's normally not too far off. And I think that last water break, actually, we came in and we changed things up. I think Joey Holden actually came out centre back. I actually went out centre forward, and our target then was TJ inside. And you know, as soon as they seen ball going in top of TJ, I think they actually kind of reverted back a little bit, and that opened things up, and we got a few scores on the board. But again, it just wasn't enough, because they ended up getting another 2 points, and they went 2 points ahead. But you know, I think we put ourselves in that position, put that pressure on in the last 10 minutes, and you know, there's small changes like that we're probably able to do, which is absolutely fantastic. And it probably put us in that position to be within a goal or a few points to win the match.
Yourself and TJ very similar age-wise, so I presume you're probably playing together for what, 16, 17, 18 years, if not more at this stage?
Yeah, I remember playing TJ since I was probably 5 or 6.
Wow, right.
Probably a little bit more, yeah. Maybe 7 or 8 playing with TJ.
What was he like as a 7-year-old?
He was a lot chubbier. he was carrying the weight, but he always had the skill. So
the S&C hadn't kicked in then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. He's a different man now. The fitness levels that TJ has now is just absolutely incredible. I think I remember even my last year in Kilkenny, I was thinking, I don't think I've ever seen TJ as fit, which was amazing. Like for a guy that's probably 34 now, going on 35, it's incredible, his fitness. But when he was younger, he had all the skill in the world and he was still well able to move. But I probably always looked up to TJ. He was always there, ahead of me and everything. And he's a great guy to have on your side.
Was there a sense at that age? Because I am always fascinated about how you go from being the wonder kid, even and you probably had to deal with it yourself, Michael, when you go down to training in Ballyhale and it's one of the Fennellys, there's automatically an air of expectation. But when you have a TJ Reid even at that young an age, where there's clearly a talent, it's such an achievement in itself to not lose the run of yourself at any stage, to keep going, to go play county, never mind go on and become one of the all-time greats. Was there an expectation even at that very young age that this guy's a little bit different?
No, not in the slightest, because luckily enough in Ballyhale there was always someone better than you, and TJ had the likes of Michael and Cha and Henry all ahead of him. So the focus was on all those guys. Right. Like Henry was just incredible when we were growing up, and everybody just wants to be Henry. And Henry had all the lads falling behind him, then the likes of Michael and Cha, and then TJ behind him, myself and Joey then come in behind TJ, and looked at the run just keeps on going with Richie Reid. He went out to Adrian, Owen Cody, Derek Cork and Darren Mullins, just a list. And it's just fantastic to have that. And again, as I said, it goes back to when the club started, that they just keep things moving on, so they do, and all those guys are still there, running the club really.
This time of the year, without having played county last season, does it make a big difference to you physically?
It does. There's a lot more hunger there, so there is. As much as I think I found it a long year, because with COVID, I was still playing with the club, but it was just so much more relaxed. You wouldn't be as tired. You weren't travelling in and out Kilkenny the whole time, or up and down from Dublin or anything like that. It was, you just go down to your local field, hit around the ball, and it was a lot more relaxed. The games were a lot more relaxed, and certainly when it came to championship, I was full of energy, and the hunger's there. Where I can't imagine being the lads now heading straight back into county, but they're well used to it, and certainly the younger lads will have the hunger to, I suppose, to start winning all
Is it
Ireland.
that difference, the gap still? Because obviously, Ballyhale are the All Ireland champions, so you would think that there is a certain level that is almost at inter-county level in terms of your strength and conditioning, in terms of the level of fitness you need to be at, and the terms of commitment that you need to put in. But is it a world away from what you'd be doing with Kilkenny?
No, to be honest, I actually feel fitter now than what I was doing with Kilkenny, and that's nothing to do with, let's say, what Kilkenny are doing. It's just, I suppose, I have that bit more time to myself, to just get myself there.
Sounds like you're mentally fitter.
Yeah, that might be it. On the pitch, I just feel that a little bit better, but I just have that bit more time, it seems, to go down to the gym. There's just so much more with Kilkenny. There's so many more matches, I suppose. You're constantly on the go, between league, and then you go into the round robin with the championship, and you're straight into it. And then when you come back to Ballyhale, you're straight into championship again with Ballyhale. It's hard going, and certainly I had that break to I suppose get that fitness up to a certain level. And
OTB AM
with Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
The Football Pod.